Welcome back to Civilization, Jamie Kilstein.
Hi.
Dude, so a lot has changed since the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, you used to be the host of, or one of the co-hosts of Citizen Radio, like super progressive, lefty podcast. And you were a vegan, but now you ate a steak with Stanhope.
All hell's broken loose. I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I am. Yeah, I remember I was thinking about like being back in the studio, and I never met Jamie before, and I was like, all right, everyone's being really nice to me. I'm like, literally feel like I'm like, this isn't a trick. Joe sent me very nice emails, and I'm like, but I'm a very trickable guy. And I came in, and yeah, everyone's just lovely and nice. Yeah, man, a lot changed. I went into hiding. Hiding.
What happened? Because I only got like a peripheral story of like what went sideways.
All right.
So like some girls accused you of.
Well, yeah. This is the fucking worst time for me to be like, you know what? Now that everyone's talking about Weinstein, it's time for Kilstein to make his return.
Weinstein, Kilstein, dude, it's too similar.
I like wrote. Yeah, it's like very like Jewy and predatory. When I wrote Stanhope. Like it was. When the Weinstein thing happened, I was like, hey, man, you want to like push off this return? He's like, you're fine. Yeah, so here's what happened. So it kind of started where I was a comic for years. And, you know, as it got more progressive, it got more into that judgmental territory, I guess, where, you know, I feel like I definitely became one of those people who would just be on Twitter all day. And instead of sort of talking about real issues, it just becomes like, who are we mad at that day? Like, who used the wrong word that day? Who can we get fired that day? Yeah. And it's Twitter mob stuff. And it happens on the right and it happens on the left. It's just like kind of just people who are sad who just live like in their box, which I was like one of them, right?
That's why I think this is such an important conversation, because you've kind of stepped away from it and you see it for what it is. I think people don't realize it when they're caught up in the swirl of it, the momentum of it, that it's almost like a natural human behavior pattern. It's very tribal.
Yeah, well, it's tribal and it's physically addictive. You know, like I've like gone back and forth with like drinking and not drinking and pot and not smoking pot. And I can tell you that the thing I was addicted to the most was Twitter. It was refreshing Twitter. It was like you literally get dopamine hits from that. Yeah. Like I remember when I first tried to get off Twitter, I was fighting with some fucking stranger in my living room on Twitter, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna go take a walk. I don't need to be involved in this guy's life. I closed it, and before I even knew it, I'm like walking in the park, fighting with some other guy on my fucking phone, and I'm like, it follows you. Like if someone's calling you a cunt, they're calling you a cunt at dinner with your girlfriend. They're calling you a cunt when you go to like your brother's graduation, and you're just like refreshing it, waiting for someone to tell you that you're good. And sort of so that I got addicted to that more than anything. And especially when I finally got an audience with like the left of left. I mean, just to be very clear, it's not like I'm going to come on this show and suddenly like do a fucking Shawn Michaels heel turn and be like, I'm Johnny Rape Joke. Those fucking bitches had it coming.
No, you're just being a person.
Well, and that's what I like wasn't doing for a very long time is I feel like, I don't want to speak for people, but I feel like with me, I always needed something to like define me, right? Where it's like I'm a progressive, or I'm a vegan, or I'm just jujitsu, and whatever I would become kind of currently obsessed with, I would sort of like throw the other shit away and kind of like shit all over that, because you know a lot of times I would feel like a failure. Like that's really where the progressive. I mean, I still hold a lot of progressive ideas, but that's when I went from comic to political. It wasn't that I like wanted to make comedy my like nemesis, right? It was that I feel like I failed. You know, I dropped out of school to start comedy at like 17. And I did the things you're supposed to do. And yeah, I did Montreal a couple times and Conan once. And I had this year where it seemed like things were going to happen. And then, you know, I was kind of that guy that people were like, oh, we like you. We can't do anything with you, but we like you. And so I started to kind of make my own audience. And the audience was fucking great. It was like a bunch of, you know, when that show started, it was a bunch of just weird, sweet, nerdy comedy fans. And then everything just started getting pushed to Crazyville. Like when I knew shit, I said this on Doug's podcast, when I knew shit got nuts is when I was defending a trans person. So already like a left issue, like I'm doing the right thing, right? And I called this transphobic guy an idiot. And we get an email that said, while we appreciate you using, defending trans people, the word idiot is ableist. And I wanted to be like, you're retarded. You're a retarded cunt.
Explain
like,
ableist for people. Ableist is making fun of people
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means anymore. I thought ableist was just like, that guy's in a wheelchair. Fuck him.
Right.
But I guess like all these different terms, these everyday terms, like I guess idiot is ableist because fucking, I don't know. There was an idiot in a wheelchair.
No. It's ableist because if you're not an idiot, if your brain works well, you're mocking someone whose brain doesn't work well. They are not able to think correct.
Oh, okay.
So you're an ableist.
Joe, you just out-progressived me.
Well, I'm pretty progressive,
I
believe
know.
it or not. I mean, I look like a meathead and I espouse some right-wing ideas. But when it comes to like social issues, I'm very progressive.
That's why we became friends. You saw a gay rights thing I did on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like you weren't. That's why.
What I saw happening, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what I saw happening with you and what I see happening just in general online. You know, I mean, I was on Citizens Radio when you guys first started.
Yeah, you were on our poster.
Yeah, but I think there's something that happened where people, around the time of Occupy Wall Street, things got really heated up.
Yeah.
And people started moving way left, and then some folks started moving way right. And I really, truly believe to this day, the way left is what started the whole Trump movement. It's in response to the way left.
Yeah.
I think all these shitheads got together and they didn't like being accused of being assholes or ableists or rapists or whatever it is by the ultra progressives. So they went far right and alt right. I mean, the alt right essentially was people who didn't identify with these old men who were bankers, but they also didn't want to have anything to do with these ultra lefty progressives that were calling everyone a racist, everyone a rapist, every man's a piece of shit.
Oh, I did all of that.
Yeah.
I straight up did all of that. And I think one of the things with the ultra left, and maybe this is me like, maybe this is me desperately trying to defend myself, but I think in a weird way, it was harder for me, and it's harder for a lot of people to see themselves slipping into the extreme left. And so, like, what I mean by that is I never thought, when I heard people say the extreme right is as bad as the extreme left, I was always like, fuck you. Because like the extreme left isn't like, bombing Palestine, being like, give us free healthcare, or like let trans people piss in the right bathroom. Like, even that like the shooter, not in Vegas, but that DC shooter, like he was like a fucking crazy guy. He wasn't ableist, I'm sorry. He wasn't like shooting the politicians screaming like, I mean, he liked the Bernie Sanders page, but it wasn't like we are launching wars against Islam for Christianity. It wasn't, we're doing this for free market capitalism. It was, to me, the extreme left, when I heard people say it, and the reason I would scoff when someone like you would say it is because I'm like, dude, like the left should just be like, stand for like equality. Everyone has the right to an education. Everyone has the right to not go fucking hungry, to have health insurance. Gay people can do whatever they want with their dicks. The end. Bye-bye.
And vaginas.
It
really should be essentially like that on both sides. The right, what being a conservative used to be was small government and people having the government stay out of your lives. And somehow
they do the
or another,
opposite.
It's morphing. Yeah.
Totally. Where it's like, we will stay out of your lives, but we'll be like in your pussy if you want a fucking abortion. We'll tell you like whose dick you can suck.
The abortion thing is where it gets real squirrely, right? Because the abortion thing is essentially, it's a religious thing. And it's a religious thing, it's a moral thing, and it's also, what is an abortion? I mean, you are ending a life, but you're ending a life inside a woman's body. Well, when is it okay to do that? Is it okay to do that at one day?
And does the grown woman's life matter more than the cells or more than...
Well, that gets to a point, but initially it's like, when is it defined as a life? I mean, if the moment of conception, if 30 seconds later it's an abortion, right. Like if you could hold your breath and then the baby's dead, You know, like if we found out that the moment a guy comes in a woman, if she could just hold her breath for a minute, the
it just
baby
goes
will
pop.
die. Yeah. I mean, is that...
Why does that sound worse?
Baby murder? But it is... Look, abortion is fucking weird, right?
It's
and
weird.
I'm pro-choice.
Yeah.
But abortion is weird because, like, when it gets older, when you're 4 weeks in, 6 weeks in, and it's still legal, and it's a fucking little baby... I mean, it is a little baby.
Look,
you
man.
look at it, it looks like a little baby. Sometimes they have a heartbeat if it gets to a certain age.
Yeah.
What's going on? Like, I'm not saying that it should be my choice to define whether or not someone should do it or not do it, but it's very disingenuous when people frame this argument as it's a woman's right to choose, period. And that's what it is. It's not just that.
Yeah.
It's also killing a baby.
I don't know, man. Feminists don't like me anymore, so I'm like, coat hanger up. I'm out of this debate. I don't give a shit.
Well, it should be an honest debate because it is a very controversial and a very nuanced issue. It's not as simple as, you know, the right doesn't want a woman to choose and stay out of my body. It's not just stay out of your body. It's like, what are we doing? We're killing a baby that's in a woman's body. At what age should that be legal?
Well, and I think that's the whole thing that we were talking about before with these like echo chambers where, you know, for the first time ever, I've been listening to sort of like both sides of issues.
First time ever?
I mean,
first time since
recently. Yeah. Well, because like you just the majority of people, like, yeah, I'll totally fess up. Sure. Like
Right.
I didn't ask a lot of follow-up questions because your Facebook feed is curated and your Twitter is all of your friends and for the most part people you agree with. And, you know, comedy now. Like, I've been listening to, like, a ton of, like, backlogs of your shows because once I was just like, oh, he doesn't hate me? I can listen to the show again? Great.
I never hated you.
No, I know.
I never hated you.
And so, but I started listening to the show and, like, hearing pretty equal, you know, progressive to conservative ideals. And comedy was always kind of this cool place where you could explore ideas because comedy and jokes and laughter would sort of take the edge off a little bit, you know what I mean? And you could actually talk about issues. And once I kind of became part of that crew that would even shit on comedy, then it was like, well, I can watch Democracy Now! And I guess that's it. And I have and I would feel fucking stupid. I hung out with journalists. I didn't hang out with comics. I hung out with people where I was sort of like, felt like the joke monkey and like the high school dropout part of me would get really
What do you mean by you felt like the joke monkey? Did you feel like you had to be funny when you're around those people?
Yeah, because when I tried to say something like political or that I thought was smart, it would just be kind of like hushed because I'm not that smart. I'm good at like telling stories. I'm good at like I think listening and asking like decent questions. But I was never like a fucking intellectual. And a lot of that crowd is, and that's good. We need those people, right? But it was really easy for me to be like, just shut up. You know what I mean?
But is this all in your mind? I mean, you're a human being, right? I mean, if you're just talking to these people, you're not an unintelligent person.
No,
like,
I think
is this just an insecurity that you carried around with you when you were around them?
Totally. Yeah,
because you were
was.
venturing. The reason why I ask you this, your show was sort of, in a lot of ways, venturing into the world of journalism.
Oh, so that's where I was going. That's right. That's where I was going, like, sort of way back, which was, you know, the show. The show started as a comedy show.
Right.
It was called Drunken Politics before it was called Citizen Radio. I think we changed it maybe around like Occupy. But it was comedy and like we had progressive ideas. So that's sort of what we talked about. But it wasn't that we had to talk about. It became this thing where any progressive issue in the news that day or on Twitter, we had to talk about that day.
Right.
And it's sort of lost. I don't know.
Did it also? Sorry,
no,
I
please.
keep interrupting you here. But did it also? You guys went to a sort of a subscription service.
No, we actually
didn't you? I mean,
no, the thing I'm really proud of about that show and why I'm definitely bummed out I lost a lot of those fans or whatever was we started ages ago. We were pretty early on with podcasts and we never had commercials and we never had. You didn't really get anything if you paid. It was voluntary. It was like a shitty version of NPR where it was like everybody gets the show for free, right? It was like us trying to be socialist. Everyone gets the show for free. If you can't afford $5 a month, $10 a month, $50.
Right. Well, a lot of people do that way. I mean, Sam Harris does that.
Totally. Yeah. We just didn't really have, like, we couldn't afford to send you like a tote bag or whatever. But yeah, so it wasn't a pay model. Everything we said, anybody could hear.
Right.
We occasionally did like little like goofy bonus shows for like subscribers, but that was it.
That was the question. So there was some shows that only people who subscribed could do.
Yeah,
most of it.
Not a lot though. Okay. Yeah, and it was 5 days a week too.
Right.
So it was a lot. That's another thing. When you're doing a fucking show 5 days a week, you got to dig for things to be like pissed off about, to not be redundant.
Yeah, I've done 5 day a week shows, and I don't think I'm at my best 5 days a week. I think 4 days a week is where I like start to break down.
Yeah.
Like anything after 4 days a week, unless I'm doing like Fight Companions, which are just a goof.
That's just hanging out and like watching fights.
That's easy.
Yeah.
You don't want to get stale or bored. You don't want to force it into being a job.
No.
And I think what I got out of you was that you were getting a lot of praise, and you were being hailed. Like I saw Jezebel wrote something where they called you a great example of an ally.
Well, that was pre this year, Jezebel.
Yeah, but I mean, that expression is a very odd expression. I mean, I hate to sound like this disingenuous egalitarian, but I really do believe this. I mean, we should be allies to each other. We all should be. This idea that like there's a goddamn team war going on, and that Jamie Kilstein is out there bucking for the females.
Right.
But that's what it's like. It's like that's what they. But they reward that.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. It's like and this is not to single out Jezebel because I think they've got some great writers.
Sure.
There's something that happens with people when you write a lot of mean, very critical stuff. And you become this attack machine, and this is how you promote your ideas. This is how you push your agenda, by attacking people that some of them fucking deserve it for sure. Some of them are definitely assholes, but it becomes almost like the currency that you deal in.
Yeah, and that goes back to the insecurity, right? By the way, my dad.
But let me finish.
Sorry.
Is that when you're an attack machine like that, and I'm not saying that Jezebel is, but there's a lot of the blogs that are attack machines. When you're an attack machine, and if you can be an ally on the other side, or not even on the other side, but an ally to the attack machine, like, and then they single you out as that, it gives you this feeling like, oh, I'm not going to get attacked by them. This is good. And you reinforce that behavior by ramping up the types of things that you say that they like, that they appreciate. And it becomes a sort of weird exchange.
Yeah.
Where, it's like implied. Like, I think this is what a lot of what goes on in political circles as well. Like, there's not as much bribery as there is an understanding that if you do what we want you to do and you say what we want you to do, then you're in. Then you're on the good side.
Yeah, and that goes back to that insecurity. And I think a lot of people are insecure.
I think we're all insecure.
Yeah.
Everyone is.
And when you do find that tribe, and you do find people who are going, and the more you attack on Twitter, because not just blogs, like remember, like individuals on Twitter, like me, like when I would see like who's getting piled on today.
Right.
Okay, cool. This writer wrote something about mansplaining. Don't need to read the article. What's the hashtag? That's the hashtag. I'm going to say the fucking meanest funny thing because I'm a comic and I'm funnier than journalists. And then famous people are going to retweet me or fave me. And then I get to feel like a fucking civil rights hero.
Right.
Because that's what would happen, where like I would literally tweet, even if not even a joke, even if I tweeted something sincere, and this like sucks to admit, but even if I tweeted something like hashtag Black Lives Matter, I'm refreshing that shit to be like, did Questlove favorite it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing it to be, and then you can feel good about yourself. Then you can go, not saying I did this, but you can go on the street and you can fucking ignore the homeless person, and you can cross the street when you see like the scary black guy because you're just like, well, I'm technically the Rosa Parks of Twitter because I fucking tweeted that joke at that writer who said that fucking thing that no one's going to remember tomorrow, but we were all angry about today. Jesus Christ, this is the first time I've had caveman coffee.
Oh, these nitros are no joke.
It's
you're basically
joke.
Drinking Adderall.
Yeah.
I think. I've never done Adderall, but
Stanhope,
explain it to me.
I got Adderall offered to me before the Stanhope podcast, and he came up to me afterwards and was like, man, you fucking talked a lot. That Adderall fucked you up. And I was like, I didn't take it. Like, I had it in my pocket. I was like, that was just me being spazzy. So I think what happens is, so you get that validation, right?
Yeah, you get the validation, and it's essentially an exchange.
And
There's an exchange, like we were talking about with Twitter being like this. You get this dopamine rush every time you tweet and refresh, and it's one of the main reasons why I don't interact with people online very much. It's very rare that I do, and when I do, I'm almost always civil.
Yeah,
because I just don't think that. Unless it's one of my friends, like I call Bert a fucking dork because he called himself the machine yesterday.
I saw that.
Like, come on, dude. I'm the machine. Like,
I love him so much.
Years ago. Let that go, Bert. You got to move on. But I mean, that's just fake.
No, yeah, and I wasn't gonna say off that with just a sort of sidebar with Twitter. When all that shit happened to me and I got off all of social media.
Well, you didn't explain what happened.
Oh, right. Okay, so
you're this super vegan,
feminist. Yeah, and again, like the ideas at their core, right? Sexism's bad, rape's bad. Like these shouldn't be fucking controversial issues, but when you take it to that extreme that you were talking about, where you're looking to sort of like, who can I call a sexist today? Who can I call a racist today?
That's the thing. It's like it becomes an attack machine.
Yeah. And my dad said that yesterday. He's like, if you go on the show, you should say you're not going to be an attack machine. And I'm like, what a dorky thing to say.
Said that?
I swear to God, I emailed it to myself, and now I can be like, yeah, all right, Rogan agreed. You and my pops. Yeah, he's gonna be very excited. So that happened. And what you were saying with the ally title, I was never comfortable with a lot of the stuff I got thrown into. I was constantly saying either the wrong or offensive things on the show that we would have to... Because
you're trying to be funny.
Because I'm trying to be funny, and we would have to stop and edit it out. And I would feel like a fucking idiot. And I remember I did a college once, and it was the first time it's ever happened. Like usually they introduce you by my like measly credits. Like they would be like, he did Conan once. And this time the woman at the college introduced me. She didn't give any comedy credits. She just goes, our headliner tonight is a male feminist. And I remember going into the mic and being like, that makes me sound like a rapist. Like, it sounds so fucking creepy. And that's what I was like labeling myself. That was the label that was thrown at me. And in my head, I'm like, well, I don't hate women, so I guess, sure. But male feminist sounds like you're like cruising around in like a fucking male feminist van being like, who wants equal pay? Like, it sounds so creepy. But I took it because there is so much sexism on the other side that you're like, I guess being an ally is good, right? That's like you're defending people, but then it gets to this level where you're like, I got to renew my ally dues and call somebody a fucking rapist. And that's where I got stuck. So this is where it bit me in the ass. So I come on this show. We have the argument about sexism. Went great.
Well, we had a discussion about Daniel Tosh.
About
this
the
is
rape
where
jokes.
When Daniel Tosh made a rape joke, and also there was this weird definition that people like to use, and I'm sure you're probably aware of the actual definition now of like how many rapes actually occur. Right. Which is it all came from a study that God, I want to say it was out of the University of Arizona, but I forget where the study was. But they essentially looked at almost any uncomfortable interaction between a man and a woman, unwanted or remorseful sex was rape. A lot of different things. Sex while intoxicated was rape. There's a lot of different things that they used to define sex, where they got to this 1 in 5.
Well, and this is another reason we need to have the conversation, right? Because like. Remorseful, I don't know what that definition is, but that doesn't sound like...
I mean, many people have had sex, I'm sure you have, and afterwards you're like, what the fuck was I doing? Some people want to call that rape.
Yeah, but like, if you're fucking blackout drunk and like the dude's not, like, okay, that is, but if we can't have the conversations...
drunk and the girl's not, did you get raped?
Right. Because that's happened to me.
Right, that's happened to me too.
Yeah. Straight up. Has a girl ever hit you?
Hit me physically? I've had girls swing at me.
I got...
but they telegraph it. You know,
they do. Coming. They wind up and they're yelling, which I'm told that's what they tell you to do in Krav Maga. But they yell while they do it. I'm like, yo, you can't yell before you throw a punch. I'm gonna know the punch is coming. But these were stories that like I couldn't even tell. Like I had a girlfriend try to beat the shit out of me when I was like 20 years old. But it happened at the same time. So I swear to God, I'm just dodging what happened, but I will get to it after this. I was breaking up with her, but it was at the same time that do you remember DIFUS? It was like child services.
DIFUS.
DIFUS. That was the acronym. Like, I don't know, maybe it was just like a Jersey thing, but it was child services essentially. Was at our house to do like an inspection essentially to be like, is it fit to have kids here? Because like my house was a disaster back in the day. And
why did they do an inspection? Were you guys thinking about having a baby?
No. We had like alcoholism in the family, and like neighbors were complaining and screaming, and like I was a fucking train wreck. And like,
how old were you?
I was like, I guess I was like 19, but I was still living at home.
Okay.
And I'm one of 5, so I'm the oldest of 5. So this guy, I'm breaking up with my girlfriend, not knowing that this like DIFUS random inspection is gonna happen, and this guy comes over, and he's this like older African guy. And he's sitting with my dad on the couch.
African American or African?
African. And
so the accent and everything.
That's the one. I'm allowed to laugh at that now.
You couldn't before.
Good times. Yeah, I can. There's so many words I can say now. It's a good time to be alive. The word. Oh my God! I was with my friend the first time I hung out with a comic. This guy, Luis Gomez. Do you know him? Yeah. Luis. So I was with Luis, and we were hanging out in L.A. And I was telling him I think I want to do comedy again, and he made a joke with the word fingering in it, and I started laughing like a fucking kid, and I'm like, I forgot how fucking funny the word fingering is.
Fingering is a funny word.
Dude, I felt like I came out of like a comedy coma. I was like, oh, fingering and midget and cunt, like there's so many good. Anyway, so my girlfriend, so I'm breaking up with her,
right,
and she starts like swinging at me, and she's like, you can't fucking break up with me, like blah blah blah. And I was just like, hey, we can talk about this later, but like there's a guy downstairs who is going to with a hilarious accent who's gonna take my brothers. You have to like stop. And she's fucking swinging at me and swinging at me.
She didn't want to listen.
Nope. And she's screaming.
So you KO'd her.
She was like, are you? So I beat the shit out of her. And then Jezebel wrote about it, and that's what happened. So I'm just like kind of like covering up, and I'm like, you have to stop. They're gonna take my baby brother. She storms off, and I go downstairs, and this guy from child services is there. And I look at him, and I have like tears in my eyes. And I'm like, please don't take my brothers. Like, she doesn't live here. She's just my girlfriend. I broke up with her. She's never going to be here again. Like, I'm so sorry about that. And he just looks at me, and he goes, and my dad, and he just goes, women are crazy, aren't they? And I was just like, all right. And that was it. He didn't give a fuck. Did not. He was like, I've seen that before. And like, she got to leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you got lucky.
I got lucky.
Could have been an angry woman.
And we all would have been in jail. Okay. So I am known as this male feminist, which again, and it kind of becomes my thing. So I go on your show. We argue about it because I'm like, I don't have comic friends anymore. So I take this side. And I didn't hear all about the rape joke. Like, I just heard the whole Daniel Tosh story I heard at the Stanhope show for the first time, because the articles I read don't have the nuanced parts, right? So
let's explain what actually happened.
Sure.
Daniel Tosh was not supposed to be on stage that night. Daniel Tosh was just hanging out at the Laugh Factory, and his good friend Dom Herrera asked him to go up. And he said, I'll go. Okay, I don't have anything to talk about. He goes on stage, everybody goes crazy. Oh my God, Daniel Tosh is here. This is amazing. And he goes, look, I don't have any material. I'm not even supposed to be up here. So what do you guys want to talk about? And some guy yells out, rape. And he goes, yeah, that's real funny, sir. What's funny about rape? The humiliation, the violence, and this woman yells out, actually, nothing's funny about rape. Like, very self-aggrandizing. And he goes, wouldn't it be funny if 5 guys raped her right now?
Right.
Like that's the funny part. That's like what a comedian does.
So that line was the line that was circulating. Mm-hmm. But even that first part, not that...
That part was ignored conveniently.
The whole part where he's just like, what's funny about it? And like, that's a good, technically, that's an anti-rape joke, right?
Exactly. Which, if you know Daniel, that's how he thinks. I mean, he's not a bad guy in any sense of the word.
And that's a great way, but that has to do with these echo chambers where I'm like, well, I didn't fucking hear that part of it. I just hear the part, you just hear the part that you're supposed to attack. And then, ironically, I went to one of Bert's podcasts at the same festival, the All Things Comedy Festival, and fucking Doug and Bert, like, this whole rape thing happened in the audience. I don't know if you heard about it, but like, all hell broke loose.
A rape thing in the audience? What happened?
So like, I don't want to be the one to blow up the spot. I don't know if Bert's gonna air it. If he airs the Take Off From Work podcast or whatever, it's one of the best things I've ever heard. But
we can call him right now.
Yeah, because I don't want to blow up his spot. But essentially what happened was Stanhope...
It'll just get people to listen.
Good. Stanhope started talking about rape and child rape, and the whole show became very rape themed.
Right.
And there was a girl next to me, and there's a woman next to me and my girlfriend who just started screaming like, "Don't talk about it." And like, so they ignored her the whole time. And my girlfriend and I would look over, and then she would like have another sip of her drink and watch the show and giggle, and then rape would come up, and she was like, "Stop!" And she would just scream, but like she didn't leave. Like she didn't get up and leave. And that was like, it was so interesting to be on like sort of the opposite end of that, where, you know, nothing offensive was really happening. And I'm like, fuck, man, I'm next to that lady from the Tosh show. This is like my karmic fate. And I'm just like, she should go. She should leave. But anyway, so I was on the not comic side of that. And by then, I wasn't doing comedy clubs. I was never really accepted into comedy clubs. I'm just playing for my progressive audience at like a vegan coffee house. Like, I'm just playing random like little rock gigs for like my audience. So again, echo chamber, right? And I'm not hanging out with comics. So when people are like, "Why aren't you defending a comic?" And I'm like, I don't know, man, because I don't think I am one. Like I didn't really consider myself one. And so yeah, so me and you went at it. I believe it was very divisive. I think half your audience thought I was a whiny bitch, and the other half thought I was a whiny bitch who should get raped. It was very one-sided. Nobody liked me. I did not come off well, I'm told. But I was like, I guess I did the right thing, right? I guess I sided with women over jokes. And so from then on, any comic that did like me didn't.
Well, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Just
and I'm not trying to sound victim-y, by the way.
But for the sake of honesty, the real issue came not just because of that, but because of your characterization.
The next day.
Yeah.
Totally. So the next day...
There's a video out about it that someone put together called the Kilstein Delusion.
Yeah, and some of that shit was taken out of context. Some of that shit I will completely like own up to. I watched it like once. I mean, at that point, just all hell broke loose. Like I lost my managers. I was having like someone hacked my Twitter and just wrote rape all over it. And I was kind of like...
Why'd you lose your manager?
They said it was because I don't cooperate with the comedy community. To be fair to them, I was like a pain in the ass client. It was hard enough for me to fucking book. And then every comic hates me and they're like, I don't know, man. I think they just like threw their hands up. And so the next day was one of those things where I'm like, I either doubled down, and I was like, it wasn't like I'm gonna lie. It was I'm gonna try to defend myself and give like, you know, my side to it. And that
let me stop you here real quick because we're going way, way, way back. The real issue, this is like a year before, more than a year before everything went sideways.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what went sideways and why?
Okay.
So you're this super progressive vegan guy, but what went sideways?
So an ex of mine, I'm trying to think about like how much I can say, started, it was weird. Like, girls I was dating, like she would kind of like pop up and be like following them on like social media. And I kind of was like, all right, it's a little weird.
Girls you were dating, but you were married at the time.
So what was also not talked about in these articles is that for the last however many years before Alice and I got separated, we were in an open relationship. We talked about it on the show eventually, but for a while we didn't talk about it. And which to anyone in a fucking open relationship, like it's a nightmare when you're not talking about it because you feel like a lecherous, cheating creep because you're in an open relationship.
But you don't talk about it. So then when girls meet you and you tell them you're in an open relationship, they're like, yeah, right.
Yeah, totally. When you go, I'm in a secret open relationship, they're like, you're full of shit.
Right.
And so, you know, I like kind of did the road thing, but like felt like a fucking creep. And
the road thing meaning hook up with girls.
Yeah,
on the road?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, you know, I was finally just like, we have to talk about it. And at this point, and I don't want to shit on anybody, you know, at this point, you know, my co-host and I, we were pretty much just like really good friends, right? Who lived together and did a show together. And, so years later, years after me and this girl broke up, years after all this shit, I'm living in LA. I've had a girlfriend for a year. It's like a very healthy, wonderful relationship. Years after all this, I guess what happened was one of these girls essentially started to try to find any girl who has been pissed off by me before. And they found enough for an article that I think like 2 articles came out. I left Citizen Radio because the show was getting a ton of complaints because our inner circle started to find out that there were quote unquote accusations, which the word accusation makes it sound Weinstein-y.
Accusations of.
So that's what. They
were saying, but it was very unspecific. What I read, they said predatory behavior, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, meaning he's trying to get laid. That's what a man does. Like, not predatory in the sense of you're victimizing someone or raping someone or doing something horrible to someone or even.
And this is when my own words kind of bit me in the ass because I spent an entire year. Or years being like, hashtag believe women. And then you read that and you go, hashtag don't believe women. Like you don't know what to do. And like, I was always like, if you call a girl who accuses you, crazy, you're just projecting and like you're trying to, and then suddenly I'm reading this article. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. And I didn't, all of my stuff.
Hold on, what article? Are you talking about the Jezebel
So there's a Jezebel,
article?
yeah, there's a Jezebel article. And
hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
oh man, it was really bad, and I read it for the first time, and I don't want to go into details because I don't want to shit on people who like feel like they were, hurt or whatever. But a good majority of the article isn't even fucking true. There was one part where Jezebel even wrote it. Like, if we can make it about journalism.
Well, let's not even say Jezebel because it's one woman who wrote it. There's several people
totally. So the author, there's one moment in it, and I'll try to make this about journalism and not about the woman, but one of the complaints about me was I had a consensual night with a lady in Nashville who I guess because she like listened to the show, maybe they're like, that's predatory because you're like famous. And I was like, well, no one else thinks I'm fucking famous.
But wait a minute. They were defining it as predatory because you're famous?
That's part of it.
So every time Mick Jagger gets laid, it's predatory?
That's part of it. That's what I don't. That's the thing. And by the way, fucking call me. If I'm Mick Jagger famous, you can call me a fucking predator. If I can barely get a +1 to a vegan festival famous, like, please do not call me a predator.
Well, I mean, look, there's levels to fame, right? And I know you're being self-deprecating and everything like that, but you did have a nice following, and you did. I saw some of your videos online where you did big crowds. So it's not like you didn't have fans.
No,
right? So you did have fans, but the idea that you liking some woman who's a fan and her liking you, like that somehow or another you're a predator because she enjoys your work is crazy. Well, is that how they were defining it? Because I don't know.
Yes. But then
it seems like they're being very convenient in their definitions.
Well, and that was part of it. There was like there was another one where it was like, yeah, the predatory stuff specifically was that. And then what was even more fucked up about the article was it said, and I'm not going to quote exactly. She also wrote into another podcast, and I heard this, but essentially what the woman said, we did not sleep together. It alluded that we slept together. It didn't say that I was in an open relationship, but we didn't sleep together. She told me she didn't want to sleep together, and I was like, great, no problem. She's like, I don't want it to go further than that,
Okay.
So I was like, cool. Even if you change your mind, we're not going to do it. Got it. And then in the article about me being a predator, it's like, I felt so safe and it was a great night. And I was like, this sounds like an article about me being a good dude. And then it said, but then weeks later, she heard on the podcast that she was just a quote road fuck. And then Jezebel, in parentheses, this one author from Jezebel, in parentheses, said Jezebel could not find the clip. Right, because it doesn't fucking exist, because I'm not going to call someone a road fuck next to my wife on my feminist podcast.
Not only that, you're not going to say it if you didn't even have sex with them.
And we didn't have sex, right.
So this is they just decided to take this characterization by this one woman
and that's it.
And flavor the article.
Yes.
It's very unfair.
No,
right?
and dude, like...
So is this punishment, you think, for you because you somehow or another...
So that's why it becomes easy. And just to be like incredibly clear, like if this woman was like hurt by that, like that sucks, man. I've been burnt by girls.
But hold on a second,
sucks.
you didn't do anything. If she was hurt because you didn't eventually become her girlfriend,
right.
or her boyfriend rather, that's just on her.
Sure.
Unless you're mischaracterizing.
No.
Mischaracterizing it.
I'm trying to be.
You're trying to be nice.
Trying to be nice.
Yeah, well, and I assume she is probably, she was probably taken out of context as well. There's a real problem with writing things about people. And one of the real problems with writing things about people is they don't get a chance to respond in real time to the things you're saying. So you establish a narrative and then you keep going with it. You write paragraph after paragraph with no one responding to that.
Yeah, and months later,
I
saw like the woman who wrote the article, like there was a request in my like other inbox in Facebook that like you don't even see, and like for a comment. So like I guess she did reach out, but at that point I was literally Googling ways to kill myself. So I'm like I did not get back to her.
So you were Googling ways to kill yourself for real?
Yeah, for real. So well, just to like
why
put a cap on that
article.
So here's what happened, and this goes to your question before, because I had called so many people sexist, because I had sort of made my almost career by that. It was fucking fun, man. When people heard about this, like, and you see the headlines, and this is another like problem with like clickbait journalism. The headlines look like I was fucking accused of rape. There was a one article that used the word sexual harassment, sexual misconduct was in all the headlines.
Yeah, what is that?
I have no fucking idea.
That's a weird one, because I've seen that one about people connected to Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah,
saying like about Ben Affleck. They called it sexual misconduct.
Dude,
like, what does that mean? Like doing something that you don't think they should do?
Well, it's really creepy.
But it's legal and
I almost lost a job. I did just lose a gig because when you Google me, it's like sexual misconduct stuff, and like that's really scary. And again, I don't want to be like, you know who the real victim of Harvey Weinstein is? Jamie Kilstein. Right. But like,
let me just stop you right here. If you say like one more time, my fucking head's gonna explode.
Oh, dude, I get comments like that.
It's brutal.
Is it brutal? Is it as bad as? All right, I'm gonna.
I just want you to slow it down.
I'm gonna
use it every now and then.
Slip this coffee over here.
You're breaking the like meter.
I'm gonna.
I do it too, man. A lot of people do it. It's an easy one to do.
I'm gonna switch to water.
But that word is it's an It's people use it as
I know.
It's okay. I do it too.
Yeah.
We all do it, but it's just it's nice to know.
Yeah. No.
But it's also a very progressive thing. Like there's a way like that people talk like when they're really progressive that like you don't hear like left-wing people talk.
I keep getting fucked over by the progressives even with my speech.
It's a way of appearing what's the word? Submissive or
innocent,
non-aggressive, innocent,
I get it.
Passive. Yeah, it's not an aggressive way of communicating.
All right, what if I said like, but like I kept like punching the table like as I did it?
Like I'm gonna fucking like let you know like.
Go to like step to me, just smash a Pabst can.
So you got a bunch of people that were upset at you because you had embodied the quintessential ally.
So it was nobody had a reason to like me or to defend me. On one half of the Twitter sphere, you had progressives who thought I was a sexual creep. And then on the other half, you have comedy fans who are like, fuck this dude. He's the one who called everyone a sexist. You don't need to read the article. If you see a headline, I mean, God, I attacked so many people without fucking reading the articles.
Right, of course.
There are people to this day that would come up on Citizen Radio that I don't know why I was mad at. I would just figure out the story as we were covering it and be like, yep, fuck that guy, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
And so there was no reason to root for me. There wasn't a strong enough fan base. It wasn't like if, a bigger comic gets accused of something. Well, he has thousands or millions of fans, and then this small community who are accusing him of something. I had sort of nobody, and when I burnt all the bridges in comedy, and I never just showed up at clubs to do sets and stuff like that, I just had this audience and sort of thought I could never get fired, Like when Ali and I sort of became more platonic before the open relationship, I mean, there were days it was so, I would sleep on the couch, but there were days I would go on the road and I would not cheat, and I would go back to the hotel and jerk off, and like my orgasm was better because I'm like, I saved Citizen Radio. Like I was trying so hard not to do anything like that. And so anyway, I lost. Yeah, there was no one to root for me. I just had this small audience. The small audience either thinks I'm a predator or they're too nervous to say anything.
Well, you fit the quintessential. There's a classic view of what a male feminist is, and that classic view is a sneaky guy that is like getting in tight with women and saying all the things they really want to hear. And the classic story is that those women are never attracted to that guy anyway and want up and go and fuck some jock.
Some alpha guy.
I mean, that's literally what happens.
There's like, yeah, you don't say like, do you?
But it's just this thing that people, it's just, well, it's a cliche.
And I totally. And I also think it was the homophobic politician who sucks a dick. Right?
Sure.
Where
same
they're
thing.
like,
yeah.
ha.
Right. The super religious guy who turns out to actually be gay, like Ted. What is that guy's name? Ted, the guy from Colorado.
Can we just say Cruz and start a uproar?
Yeah. You probably
Ted Cruz, right? It was definitely Ted Cruz.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Ted Haggard.
Ted Haggard, yes. Yeah. And I used to have a bit about him. And
who didn't?
Yeah, right. And so this is what happens. Yeah, this is sort of the problem with acting like you don't have flaws. And I always did. I thought on the show, my favorite parts of my show were when I talked about depression or alcoholism, and we would get emails in from people who, you know, it said it really helped them. And I wanted to talk so much more about that stuff because I do think it's important to examine your flaws. But on a political level, I held myself up as like in untouchable.
Well, I think you were doing essentially the same thing that you were talking about doing on Twitter, where you're addicted to this positive response and you're addicted to saying these things about people and attacking people. It's a real problem on the left where there are people that essentially a giant majority of what they do is attacking people.
Yeah, and you also get scared about what you can talk about. So one of the things that would come up a lot was like fat shaming stories on the show. But what also came up was like, I fucking love jujitsu. And so we would get emails from people who were like, yo, my doctor just said like I have to lose weight or I'm fucked or whatever. And the first thing I would recommend, like I would give diet advice and I would be like, jujitsu, go fucking do jujitsu. And then we got countless emails from people who were like, yo, I lost 100 pounds because I did jujitsu. Yo, I just got my blue belt. Like I feel confident for the first time or whatever. And then we would get emails, counter emails being like, I don't want you to talk about that because that's fat shaming to me. And I couldn't say, that's fucking crazy. I couldn't say...
Well, why couldn't you say that?
Because it would be fat shaming. In the box that I had put myself in, I couldn't say that. I was capable of saying it. I thought it. I said it off the air.
But why wouldn't you... See, this is where it gets real problematic when it comes to expressing your ideologies. Like, if you can't be honest about your actual thoughts, then what you're doing is bullshit.
It was bullshit.
Yeah.
And there is the other side to the validation of once you find yourself in a box
niche. Yeah.
is the policing of it.
Yes.
So there's validation on one side, and then there's, I can get kicked out. On the other side, right? Like if I say this word, I can get kicked out. If I say that like you should not fucking come down on someone for doing jujitsu and getting into better shape than you. If you don't want to do it, I'm not saying this guy's doing jujitsu, so fuck you for being fat. I'm saying this guy's doing jujitsu. We should be proud of this guy who saved his life. That's not fat shaming. And there's so much of that projection from the left where, and on Twitter in general, where it's
but why is that though? Like, well, I mean, it really is the ideology thing. It's like you are unable to criticize anyone that's in your team because this is essentially what's going on. So they're using the phrase fat shaming, which is obviously a progressive ideology, or it fits right into it. But for someone to say that you're fat shaming by discussing people successfully managing their health, that's fucking insane.
That's where it gets crazy.
But if you, wanted to talk about this,
yeah,
right?
Of course I did.
Did Allison want to as well?
I mean, I can't speak for her, right? But
did
like,
you guys have conversations off the air about like this is crazy?
I would have conversations about that.
Yeah,
and because you don't. Because fat shaming sucks, right? Like if someone gets fired for being fat, like that's the thing. I feel like there's a middle ground.
Road.
I know.
It's a slippery road when you can't honestly communicate.
And this is what
the debate gets silenced.
It's done. And that's what happens with, I was listening to, I think it was Sam's podcast with the guy who got screamed off of that campus.
Sam Harris?
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson?
Maybe. Oh, no. The guy that was the Halloween costume
Vic,
one.
Yeah. From Yale.
It was him and his wife.
Yes.
And he was just like, he just sounded like the sweetest guy.
Great guy.
And I just knew, I was like, I don't remember when, but I can guarantee there's an episode about that guy
shit on that
who was
guy.
just like, I was defending my wife. I've given to progressive causes my whole life. I just tried to talk to them. And yeah, he would raise his hand and they would call it like a fucking, some kind of like microaggression or I don't even remember.
Well, you know what happened at Evergreen, like Evergreen State College.
I heard it on
Brett
your
Weinstein.
show. It was, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I did hear that episode. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very extreme example where they were telling the president to put his hands down.
That's what
they
it-
said, because you're making this you're being aggressive with your hands. So he did put his hands down and they started laughing.
Right.
Because that's what's really going on. It's a game.
Well, and the thing is too, it's like we have such legit racism and sexism in this country, and I feel like we should be going after those issues, right?
Well, that's why I think this conversation is very important.
Right.
Because you're an example of someone who got caught up in the ideology of things where your intentions were good in the beginning, but you got caught up in this whole left-wing spiral.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you go extreme right, I feel like, you know, if I had like a big like Nazi kill the Jews like closing prop bit, I feel like I would know I was selling out, you know. But on the left, it's a creep, man, because you really feel like, again, the baseline of homophobia is bad, sexism is bad, racism is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good things, right? So when it starts to creep into the language policing and stuff like that, at least for me, I didn't really notice it. I would notice it sometimes and be like, man, I wish I could say this, and I wouldn't because I wouldn't want to get in trouble. And it bit me in the ass anyway. And, you know, so the suicide stuff was like, yeah, like I had nothing. People on Twitter.
So you stopped doing shows.
Oh, I got a day job for the first time in like 15
What are you doing for a living?
years, jiu-jitsu stuff.
Teaching?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, but if even this stuff, like I don't want to put that fucking job in jeopardy, right? Like at least it's something I love.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, I couldn't perform. I didn't, because again, remember, like
So you felt like your audience was gone.
audience gone. Oh, straight up. I mean, there was a Facebook comment. I had to stop going online, but there was a Facebook comment from the day before that was like, just so you know, you saved me from killing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day when all that shit broke loose, like, you know how you can like add a comment to your comment? It was like, fuck you, I hope you, whatever.
Same person.
Same dude. Like literally added it to his comment.
But you need to think about some of the things that you've said and realize that you didn't really mean them, but you were saying them because you're trading in the currency of political correct left-wing progressive ideology thinking,
Yeah.
right? And you were getting from that. But you got to realize these other people are doing the same thing.
Right.
Like they don't really mean what they're saying. They feel like they have to say, fuck you, I hope you die, Jamie Kilstein.
Yeah.
They don't even know you.
Well,
I think we have a real problem, both left and right in this country, with attacking people. And I hate to say this, but I think we have a problem with doing that with Trump. Because although he has done some reprehensible things and he said some really foolish things and his ego is ridiculous, there's a lot of things wrong with him, right? But the attacks on him and all this attacking, instead of sort of laying out a better way, instead of explaining what's wrong with it, it's all insulting and attacking. That doesn't fix anything, and it's not going to.
And it also is going to make his people double down.
Exactly.
And they're not going to want to
That's
listen
exactly
either.
my point.
And that's what I noticed. That's why you can never win a Twitter argument, right?
Right.
You have like extreme one side and extreme other side. It's like, cool, you're going to solve this in 140 characters. That's why
the problem is also people start insulting each other. It just doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't. It becomes a contest. It's like you try to do that, and I go check, and then you go check, and then we move in back and forth, and you're trying to fucking get my king.
Yeah, and then like people's Twitter bios where like their whole bios are like, here's a list of people who blocked me. It's like, yo,
that's
man,
hilarious.
if that's your fucking, that's your resume, that's your life accolades, like that's such a bummer. And
Well, I would have people block me, and I never even communicated with them because somehow or another I got on some sort of a list where someone decided I was a bad guy.
I use that app, and I don't know how to reverse it because now I'm friends with the Legions of Skank guys, and I was like, oh, I think I blocked everyone. It's called like Twitter blockchain or something.
Yeah.
And so I would go to your profile. If like all of your fans are attacking me, and I'm like, fuck this, I go to your profile, and then I click it, and it blocks everyone who follows you.
Well, it's not just that. Like people, there's groups that people have decided are problematic.
I've seen that. I never.
Like they decide you're right wing, or you decide you're anti-progressive, or whatever.
So you're on like a hate list.
I've been blocked by people that I'm like, I never even communicated with this person. It's like I saw like a screenshot of someone saying something absolutely ridiculous, and I'll go, oh my god, I got to go to this guy's page.
Yeah.
And then I go there. Well, I'm blocked.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you fucking dummies, all you have to do is sign out of Twitter, and then I go to your page. And then I read it all.
Yeah.
You can't really block someone.
And like when I found myself like looking through all those, I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of this. So, dude, I will
You're
say,
a cautionary tale.
Oh my god, yeah, I will. That's gonna be what my Edinburgh show is called. Cautionary beta male tale.
Are you gonna do an Edinburgh show now?
Dude, I think so. All I want to do is be a comic. I did stand up at Burr's Festival, and it was so fucking fun. I did it the night after Stanhope's podcast.
Did you have like material written down?
Or I had stuff about like this, and
it had been the first time you didn't stand up in how long?
Well, if you're not counting like the weird like slam poetry music shows I did like 5-6 years, and then it was the first time I've been on stage in a year. I mean,
wow. So first time you've been on stage in a year, and the first time outside of doing, because I saw something that you did. Where you were doing like what you're saying, like sort of slam poetry, where you take these big deep breaths in between each line.
Yeah,
You're it's almost a performance art piece versus doing actual stand-up.
If you don't
right?
pause, you can't hear that they're not laughing, my friend.
Well, you were just, you had a thing going on.
It was a cadence. It was like, I'm a drummer. And also when I wasn't getting booked, like after 9/11, my stuff was really political and I wasn't getting booked in New York. So I would just go to slam poetry places. And I just made, if I had a gay rights joke, I'm like, oh, well, let's just do a 3-minute gay rights chunk.
Right.
And so I started to get booked.
But some of it was like really well written. I saw this one thing that you did in front of some big giant group of people about the Trump boys and
that was at the Talib Kweli show. Yeah. All this shit happened like right after. Yeah, it was a real bummer. Right after I'm in LA, because I was suicidal in New York, which I've never talked about publicly.
Before.
I was very, very, very suicidal.
Why?
I was just in, I don't want to say like love. I don't want to be mean, but I was in like a failed relationship, right?
Right.
And I didn't have friends, and I wasn't doing comedy.
Why didn't you have friends in New York?
I had friends when I would do jiu-jitsu. I had friends in Marcello's. Like those guys were absolutely like the best friends I had.
Right.
But I didn't feel like I had like a career. And I had a couple friends. I mean, all of our friends were pretty much linked to that same sort of progressive circle.
Right.
When I went home to see my brothers and I could talk how I wanted to and I could shoot the shit and I could like not police my own language, it was amazing. I would go walk around blocks just to talk to my brother Nick like for hours, and we would just laugh and tell jokes and shit like that. And then I've had depression forever, and I've been self-hating forever, and this is not, I can't by any means blame it on other people. But I remember, and this kind of ties in, this is really fucked up. This kind of ties into what you were talking about with like microaggressions and stuff like that. I remember I tried to open up to somebody very close to me about being suicidal, and they told me that I forget the progressive word for it, but they said it was like manipulative, essentially.
You being depressed was manipulative?
Me being suicidal, by telling them I was suicidal. Because I was telling them like looking for help. Right. And now with that said, the people who were like, if you break up with me, I'm going to kill myself. That's fucked up, right?
Right.
That's like holding them hostage or making them feel like they would be responsible. That, I guess I would consider, that's manipulative, right?
Well, it's certainly not good.
It's fucked up.
It's not healthy.
Yeah, totally. But when you reach out for help, like that's fucked up. And so I didn't feel like I had a lot of people. I had my family and stuff like that. And that's why one of the reasons I moved to LA is I came out to here and I did a big show and it was great. And I love LA and I've always wanted to live here. So once my relationship ended, I was like, I've always wanted to go to LA. I'm going to go to LA. So I go to LA and then...
Fuck the winter, right?
Dude, every New Yorker who's like, oh, fuck LA, they're all like fake happy. I'm like, no, bro, they're happy because it's gorgeous. And like we're eating avocados by the pool and it's sunny and everyone's really nice.
Duncan Trussell was like, I want to be a New Yorker, man. And now he's like, fuck that, dude. I did one winter. I'm moving back.
It's the worst.
He's moving back before this winter. He's like, I can't do it anymore, man.
Dude, it's just cold and everyone's mean to you. And jujitsu.
That's what I don't like, the mean part.
Everyone's so mean. And jujitsu in New York, when like in the winter where you'd be so fucking cold and then you leave the gym and you're so hot, but you have your dumb jacket on, and then you get on the subway and you have to rip your jacket off, and then you get off the subway and you're freezing again. It's like, fuck that.
You know what the solution to that, by the way? It's non-vegan.
Is that what it is?
Merino wool.
What's
merino wool?
Oh.
Yeah, because merino wool, when you're wet, it retains heat. It also keeps you cool when you're hot. Hunters use it. It's
no shit.
Yeah, there's a company called First Light, Lite, and they make like really good merino wool clothing for hunting, and they're one of the first guys to figure it out.
That's cool.
What it is it's a natural fiber because of wool, and wool. It's a weird thing. Like if you have a cotton shirt on, okay, and you get wet from sweat, like say if you hike up a hill, but it's cold out, and then you sit down, you will freeze your fucking ass off, and it's really bad. Like you can get hypothermia that way. But if you have wool on, it retains the heat, the body heat, even if it's wet. It's really weird. So if you just wear a base layer of merino wool, like when you go out, like in cold weather, you will get wet from the sweat, but your body will retain heat.
Oh, man.
You stay warm.
Well, now in LA, I get to pull up to fucking Henzo's, my little Prius, and it's sunny. I walk in, I go train, say bye to everybody, and get back in my car.
It's a different thing. Yeah, you have to lay a towel down so you don't sweat through your seats. That's it.
Yeah, totally. So I moved to LA, and I met my girlfriend, and it's like the most healthy, wonderful relationship. My girlfriend was a comedy fan when she met me, and not a feminist. And she saw me at Cobb's. That was one of the clubs that would still like play me. And and when we first met, I think she got excited that she was going to date a comic because she's like a huge comedy fan, dude.
Right.
And, we moved in together, and she would be like, this is exaggerated, but it would be like, do you listen to Bill Burr's podcast? And I'd be like, let me tell you why he's problematic and upholds the patriarchy. And she must have been like, fucking shit.
Did you really say that?
No, but she's like, I'm dating kind of, the worst comic. And now, once all this shit happened, I get to discover all these great people I wasn't allowed to watch. I'm like, did you know these Woody Allen movies are good? And I watched Manchester by the Sea, and it was great.
When I met you, you were deep in the throes, or you were beginning your journey of progressivism. You know? And you were on your way.
But the first show we did was great. I don't think we even...
No. That's not what I mean. But what I'm saying is, but I knew people that knew you from back in the day, like Stanhope.
Oh, right.
Like, I remember when Kilstein was just a comic. He was just a comic. He was one of us.
Yeah.
And then you assume this identity. But all of us are susceptible to ideologies. Like Jordan Peterson had a really fascinating take on Nazism, about these people that became Nazis. And what's most terrifying about it is that if you were in their exact same shoes, you are a human being, and it is quite possible that you could have been a Nazi too. And that is terrifying to people. But that's a very evil ideology. But ideologies in general, we're all susceptible to them. I've been susceptible to ideologies my whole life, and I have a very addictive personality.
Me too.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you and I connect, like on jiu-jitsu and things along those lines, because you get obsessed with these things, and they become a part of your identity. And I think for you, progressivism was in that box. It was in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, and we all crave acceptance and comfort and support and a tribe, right?
Yeah.
And again, with progressivism, it doesn't sound like an evil thing. Right. It's not like I was in a gang. Like, no parents are warning kids like, I hear Noam Chomsky blasting out of his fucking stereo. Like, that doesn't happen. So you don't really...
If it does, it's really slow anyway.
It's really slow.
A big a deal. He talks like this. It's not a problem.
I tried to ask him a relationship question just to change it up, and he was like, I'm not going to answer that. And I was like,
did he say that?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I was trying to be funny at the end of the interview.
What was the relationship question?
I was like, what do you consider? It was like love, or like, what's your whatever? Like, oh no, I was like, I want to do like love advice with Noam Chomsky, and it was essentially like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm wearing sweaters. That's it. That's how it goes. Yeah, he's got a very distinct area that he operates
Yeah.
in.
Howard Zinn I interviewed. He was funny as shit.
Was he?
Howard Zinn was fucking cool. He was
Really?
spry. Yeah, totally. He was
No kidding.
had one of his last interviews at his house.
Spry's a funny thing to say with really old dudes.
Dude, well that was the first thing I thought, where he pulled up in his little car and he had his like Whole Foods bags and he like hopped up the steps. He was like, "Come in, I'll get you orange juice." And I was like, "All right, Howard Zinn." And then yeah, he died a couple weeks later. Like it was one of the last fucking interviews, and he was like, "That's where Matt Damon used to live," and I was like, "Cool, man."
Wow.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was super cool. Like I did not see that coming because he was really high energy. He was self-deprecating in the interview.
Nice.
Dude, it was awesome. It was really fun.
I think going back to this, one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you is because I think that this trap of falling into any ideology. I mean, I know a lot of people that get really wrapped up in right-wing ideologies. I think it's a trap. And I think that also this tribal thing that we do of attacking people that aren't on that tribe, it's a trap too. I mean, you see it you get rewarded for it. Like P.Z. Myers has a whole career from it, like attacking people on the other side instead of. I think there's a way to get these ideas across where you're not going to piss people off, and I don't think pissing people off is. I think there's certain comfort to it, but there's also people gravitate towards you because they don't want you to do that to them.
Yeah, and I
you know
think
what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think everyone does that. You know, like PZ, I haven't been on Twitter in forever, but like he was always really nice to me. But the people he's also arguing against are also kind of doing the same thing too.
Yes.
And I had this fucking revelation today, coming in the studio when I was kind of like worst case like battle planning. I'm like, what if he really hates something I say and we're gonna get into a fight? And for the first time ever, I was like, oh, I could listen to him and ask a follow-up question. Like I could just, because that wasn't an option before. Because you have especially when you start going on MSNBC and these news roundtables, no one asks questions. No one goes, what do you mean by that? Right?
You guys went on once and you were talking. Now this is one time I actually got upset at you.
Yeah.
Not upset at you, but upset at the idea.
Well, time to wrap it on up. I'm kidding.
You were going on after Charlie Hebdo, and you were saying that the cartoons that they did were really racist. And my thought was, it's so fucking what? Even if they were racist, these people got gunned down and killed because of a ridiculous religious ideology. And this is what this is about. This is about not being able to draw Muhammad.
Well, and I think that...
But you got wrapped up in this super progressive, like, but you're also... It was so confusing to me because... The term Islamophobia is a very interesting one to me because it's always used essentially on the left. It's very rarely used on the right? And Islam promotes violence against women. Yeah. It's very in terms of like its suppression of women's rights. I mean, it's very ancient in its ideas.
Most religions do,
but
right?
That is a very uniquely suppressive one.
I don't know. If you actually took the Bible literally, did you know the?
Okay, yeah. If you take the Old Testament literally,
yeah, the Old Testament. I mean, the selling your daughter into prostitution.
Right, but we're talking about someone who is literally taking that version of it in practice and killing cartoonists for drawing Muhammad.
So here's what I think you should be able to. Here's what I've been trying to do, where it's like I don't understand why you can't go, racist cartoons are bad and hacky. Killing them is worse, right? You shouldn't kill people. Or if you go, that Islamophobia, racism against Arab people who you're just going to assume are all Muslim, and not just
all regressive
Muslim, but all like extreme
sexist
versions of that.
Homophobic.
Yeah, that's bad. But being sexist in the name of a religion is also bad, right? And I think this is what you were talking about, where it comes down to, well, you got to pick a side, dude.
Right.
It's either everybody's racist or every Muslim is a murderer. And it's like, you don't have to pick a side. And post this fallout, when I've been like, I mean, here's the thing. I've been healthier than I've ever been in my life. My girlfriend is fucking wonderful. I wake up at like 5 and I meditate, and like jiu-jitsu saved my fucking life literally saved my life this year. Being off Twitter, being off social media has been fucking great. It's been incredible. And getting to listen to Sam Harris's podcast, getting to listen to your podcast, hearing both of you guys say like really progressive things. I don't think people know that.
I think they do. I think you were just in an echo chamber. But
I think if you don't listen to
what's important about what you're saying is pick a side.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. no one's running either side.
No.
This is what's going on. It's not like, it's not like it's the Dolphins versus the Raiders.
Right,
like one team has very clear outfits and they're trying to move the ball across this line. The other teams. No,
I don't know what any of those words meant, but I get you.
You know what I'm saying? I don't either, really. I barely do.
No,
but
I know fighting.
But the idea is that these sides, they're very fluid. They're moving around all the time, and they solidify with resistance.
Yeah, and I think when people hear middle or middle ground, they always see that as wishy-washy or
you're
not
a fence
taking a
sitter.
side. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like there's good middle ground. Like the racism / jihadism is really good, right? You can say that both are bad. You can say that jihadism is bad. You can say that fucking profiling Muslims is bad. I don't know what's so fucking hard about saying those things.
Well, it also, in attacking all Muslims, what you are doing is solidifying their position as well, and you're making it very hard for them to look. All religions at one point in time were extremely rigid. And like you said, if you go back to the early days of Christianity, go back to the Inquisition. I mean, they did some fucking unbelievably horrific things in the name of God and in the name of Christianity. Now, if you look at where more moderate Muslims are today, there's people that are reformers that still consider themselves Muslims.
They're great,
There's a ton of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, I guess, is no longer considers herself a Muslim, but Majid Nawaz. There's a lot of them who consider themselves Muslims, but they're moving towards a more progressive ideology. Now, this is possible, but it's only possible if you're not attacking. See, if you attack, then the more radical of that base, they lean to that, and they lean to reinforcing their team.
Well, not only the more radical, but even just the younger ones, where if you are a 16-year-old Muslim kid in America and you immigrated here because your fucking family got bombed in Iraq or Syria or wherever by us, and now you're being profiled and being called racist names here, it's like, that's how you make extremists.
Yes.
And so it's not only is the racism racist, but it's also fucking counterproductive in a lot of ways.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's like all these wars that we say we're doing to defeat Islam, they're also creating a fuckload of extremists who maybe would have been moderate, but now their house is in rubble. They don't have jobs, right?
100%.
And they're just like, well, I'm going to avenge my family, and this dude says I get to go to heaven, so fuck yeah.
And this ideology and this point of view, it's applicable to this whole team mentality that we do with right versus left as well.
Yeah.
And that in attacking, instead of explaining the positive aspects of your positions, instead of attacking the other positions and attacking and ad hominem attacks on these people and attacking their structure, who they are, attacking them as racist, as sexist, as homophobic, instead of reinforcing the very positive aspects of live and let live, about being open-minded and being legitimately progressive, progress.
Dude, totally. And I think that one of the things that I know I did and everyone I followed on Twitter did in sort of the progressive world is you would like try to out-progressive each other, right?
Yes.
So it's like somebody has a progressive take on the news. How do I make it? Like, dude, when same-sex marriage became legal, people would be like, yeah, we'll tell that to the people Obama droned. It's like, fuck, can't we just be happy about like one thing? Or it's like they're finding ways, like everyone likes Cory Booker. What can I find that Cory Booker did that was like fucked up,
of
right?
Course, yeah.
Or, like I feel like you gave another example, but it's, I mean, that just happened with Rose McGowan a little bit, right? Like she did this really brave thing by coming out against Harvey Weinstein, and then people are calling it like white lady feminism. And it's like the left is never going to win if you can't let the rape survivor come forward without attacking her for not being raped progressively enough. Like that's nuts. And I think that's one of the biggest problems.
Everybody's trying to be the best example, right? The best example of being progressive and shit on someone who's less progressive than you.
Yeah, or the most
ramp
oppressed.
It up, right. And ramp up the radical aspects of your progressivism. And the most oppressed, is that what you're saying?
The most oppressed. And like for like a white guy like me, it was like, well, I'm not oppressed. I'm not going to start calling myself like Senor Kilstein. Like I'm going to be the ally. So
Right.
I'm not oppressed, because Twitter was a great tool and is a great tool where we wouldn't have had a lot of like really big, I think, social justice victories without Twitter. And it became a really good,
what?
like,
Which ones?
well, I think it became a good watchdog for the police violence, right? And
But why specifically Twitter and not just all social media in general? Do you think Facebook is more of an echo chamber? Like, what do you...
Yeah, I mean, Facebook, at least for me, Facebook goes a little slower, and I mainly follow just friends on Facebook. But I guess you're right. I guess Facebook and Twitter, social media.
I think the problem with Facebook is that people have the opportunity to be too verbose. They can write these gigantic long screeds, and no one's going to fucking read it anyway. And you give people too much of an opportunity to be self-indulgent.
That's all I did. That's all it is. And then you just see it, and you see a word like racism, and you go, I guess I like it because I don't want to not like the big racism.
Right.
I'm not going to read it. But then you also become, I didn't read fucking articles. If the progressive person I knew shared an article and the headline looked good enough, I would share the article. And then that's the shit that happened to me.
Right.
How it backfired, where I'm like, how many people are actually reading these fucking articles, reading the articles that say we could not find that quote or we could not find whatever.
So all this shit went down. Jezebel writes an article about you. Some other people write articles about you, and you just dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, so I
just figured, fuck this. I'm deleting my Twitter.
Yep. So, well, I assumed... I mean, nothing I could say. Part of me didn't say anything. Part of me didn't say anything because I'm like, I have to be a real person now. I can't do shows anymore. So
why'd you say that?
Just because I felt like the only world I knew completely was crashing down and calling me things that I wasn't. And I already sort of burned comedy. And
well, this is what I don't understand. Like, I don't see the big accusation. I see them saying you tried to fuck girls.
Well, that's what happens is in my world. And
your former world,
pre Weinstein, and like, this is what real predators look like. It was just fun to go after him, to go after me.
Right, but and also, as you said, because you had sort of set yourself
brought it on myself, right? And so my girlfriend, when it happened, my girlfriend was out of town. I totally assumed she was breaking up with me. So I'm in L.A. in like my little apartment with my cat. My girlfriend, I assume, is gone. My family's talking to me, which is great, but none of my friends. Here's something I'll say this is one of the reasons I came back to comedy. I mean, besides I always loved it and I missed it, was the only fucking people that reached out to see if I was okay were comics. Comics who I hadn't talked to in years. None of the progressive journalists, none of the people who knew about depression or suicide or whatever. I mean, I don't even know if they read the fucking article, like, or if they just saw that word and was like, I will get in trouble if I mean, Jim Norton, who I knew when I was 22. I probably asked him if I could do a guest spot for him at like the Stress Factory. Wrote me to see if I was okay. Like, you wrote me a really nice email. Stanhope wrote me a couple times to make sure I was okay. Provenza, it was comics. It was comics.
Real comics realize that we're all fucked up. And I didn't go down your road, but if I was in your shoes, I might have walked down your road. It's very possible. And to say that you couldn't, I would never be in that position. I would never do that. I would never say those things. That's disingenuous. It's not true.
Right.
I mean, I didn't grow up in your house. I didn't live your life. I don't have your experiences, your genetics, your environment. I didn't have those things. Yeah. If I did, I easily could have gone down your road.
Yeah. And, that definitely, months later when I reached out to Stanhope, I just reached out to thank him, and I said something that made him laugh, and he was like, you could come back to comedy. And I was like, no, I couldn't. And
you definitely could.
Well, yeah, and he was the one. And man, after doing that festival and just hanging out with just fucking Bert and like Ari,
we
and
have
like
fun.
Dude, it was so fun. It was
what we do, man. We have fun professionally.
That's all it is. And
that's what this fucking podcast is.
And you know what's crazy? My girlfriend said this, where we were talking about this, where those guys will ball bust more than anybody, right? I walked backstage with my girlfriend, hugged Morgan Murphy. She said, please don't rape me. Hugged Bert, who just said, he's touching my dick, and started running around the room. And then they had my back so fucking hard.
Of course.
Whereas when I was around progressives, or when Diana and I were around, they don't ball bust, but they do not have your back. It is icy judgment pretty much around the clock.
Well, they feel like they have to know when to cut you off if you do anything where you cross the line.
Right. And it was so wonderful, where I was like, all I want. So before that, I assumed I had nothing, was literally Did you know when you Google how to kill yourself, the first website that comes up it's a lie. They say like easiest way to kill yourself, and then you click it, and it's like, just kidding, don't kill yourself, and it's like harp music, and you're just like being rickrolled essentially by like a suicide hotline.
Hilarious.
It's nuts. And then
that would make me kill myself.
That's what I was saying. I was just like, I needed someone I could trust in my time of need, and they're lying to you. And then I just started looking through ways where I was like, I don't have a gun.
Get a gun.
Now I'm gonna, dude. When this fucking happened, I'm gonna get a gun. I'm gonna kill animals. I would fucking ballistic.
How did it go from? How did you stop being a vegan? Like, what happened there?
No, I mean, I still am like.
Dude, you ate a steak with Stanhope.
Well, but that doesn't count, right?
Fuck, it doesn't.
If it's Doug.
How many times have you eaten meat since this all happened? Be honest.
Not many.
I hate to say that I hate that I have to say be honest, but I know I have to say that.
Yeah. Look, let's just go back to me being an accused predator. I'll get less shit for that.
I have meat that I killed personally. No factory farming. You could eat that.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
I'll give you some of it.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
see, there you go.
Straight up.
You know, wild
Has
animals
Ian done it
wandering
yet?
through the woods. No, he's going to.
He's going to?
He's going to eat it here.
Should we all do it together?
We could, but I don't know when that's going to happen. I can give you some meat right now.
All right. Keep me posted.
Ian's not here.
I will.
I have 2 commercial freezers back here.
Do you?
Yeah.
This place is fucking insane.
It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
I needed a fun house.
Yeah, I'm so excited for like the mats. Oh,
yeah. That comes this weekend.
Does it?
Yeah.
Dude, that's fucking great.
So this whole journey that you've been on, and this is, again, one of the reasons why I want you to come on. I think we can all learn something from it.
Yeah.
And I hope both communities learn something from it. I mean, maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, but I really think like this idea of right versus left is so goddamn crazy, and we have more common ground than we don't. And I think reasonable people think all these core tenets that we were just talking about. Like, we think that we're egalitarian. We think that women should be treated exactly the same way as men, that you should be judged by your character. You shouldn't be judged by the color of your skin or where you're from. I mean, the people that I know that are cool people, we have black friends, we have Asian friends. We don't, like, especially in the world of comedy, the only currency that you carry around is your personality and whether or not you're good.
Yeah.
Whether you're funny, whether you work hard. And when you're around people that are funny and work hard, those people are fuel.
Dude.
They're inspirational.
Totally. And I'll say this, that I was not a good person, I don't think, at least to the standard that I would like to hold myself, when I was just like wrapped up into this world.
Well,
I was
you were
very
flawed.
narcissistic. Well, yeah, I'm still flawed.
Well, we all are, but you were using a flawed operating system.
Yeah, and also like, but I was just desperately searching for validation. I was very selfish. I was really depressed, and ever since this happened, I barely watch the news. When people are like, Trump called North Korea gay, I'm like, I don't know, not to me. Like, I don't watch that shit anymore.
So you just stepped back.
I totally stepped back, but ever since
for a full year.
Yep. But I mean, it wasn't. I'm saying this right now, like I'm like, I'm just like walking the roads like Kwai Chang Caine. I was like in the first.
I forgot about him.
I know, he's the best. Did you ever watch Kung Fu: The Legend Continues? Not as popular. I fucking
Not
loved it.
quite as good.
No.
Right?
But I was like,
it's different times.
yeah, it was like him.
Less innocent.
It was modern day. He was still Kwai Chang Caine, but his son was like a street cop. It was the best.
Oh, that's right.
It was so good.
He had a son.
And so, yeah. So the first.
That guy died with a dildo up his ass. Hanging by his neck.
Kwai Chang Caine?
Yeah.
David
Carradine?
That was not on the list of suicide options that I looked up. Dildo in the ass hanging?
They think that he might have done something to piss off Thai gangsters because he died in Thailand, and he died like in what would be considered either a shameful way. I mean, it was autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah,
was what they listed. But what I've heard is, by the way, that means nothing.
Yeah.
But what I have heard is that there are people that consider the possibility that he was murdered.
That's the craziest shit I've ever heard.
They hung him and put him in a wetsuit and shoved a dildo up his ass. And
well, look, I can't complain about my life anymore. I didn't have a dildo shoved up my ass by Thai gangsters.
Apparently, he wasn't a nice guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that whole like taking the show from Bruce, I don't know how much he had to do with it, but like Kung Fu was like
from Bruce Lee.
Yeah, that was Bruce Lee's idea.
He was probably just an actor.
Yeah,
I doubt
it was
he had
probably
any
just
power.
like his people, right?
Yeah, nobody knew who he was.
Totally.
If no one knew who he was, he had zero power.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
what I was going to say is, yeah, I don't want to act like this fucking like hero who just stepped back. The first 6 months I walked around like I was accused of actual sexual crime. I had a hoodie and fucking sunglasses, and I felt when I would meet new friends, I would sit them down and be like, just so you know, like there's something I've been accused of. Like I was a fucking Megan's Law pedophile.
Oh, boy.
And it was only till recently when my girlfriend's like, you got to stop, dude. Like you are owning that. You're owning that as like a part of your person when you do this.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I have to, right? Like if I meet with like an agent, like, and they Google it and they don't read it, it looks fucking shady. It's not, but it looks shady. And all people do is they Google and they look at a headline and they go, oh, fuck that. I don't want to be around that, right? But for the second 6 months or whatever, I feel like my family is like, this is the most present and communicative you've been. I feel like I've been a better friend. My jujitsu has skyrocketed. I feel like I have a family at my jujitsu school. Like I've become a really good teacher. I read more. I fucking meditate more. I'm like an awesome boyfriend. Like I have such a good, healthy fucking relationship. And I don't think any of that shit would have happened if I was still in social media world, if I still just woke up every day and was like, what's the hashtag that I have to tweet about? What are we angry about today? Because that's how every day starts, is you check Twitter and you go, oh, there's a popular hashtag. I have to come up with a fucking joke because Trump did a thing. And it drove me crazy. And there's part of me that I'm like, maybe I'm selfish, but I would rather be a better person now and try to be a comic. I also forgot that like comedy fans just love comedy. Like when people came up to me after the Stanhope show, I wasn't political on the Stanhope show, but they were like, hey man, that was really funny. And I was like, oh, that's right. Like you don't have to be overtly fucking preachy or political to like make someone's day, right? Like it sounds so cheesy.
Well, that was the currency that you were trading in.
I just thought
you were trading in progressive currency.
Yeah,
you know?
And I thought, dude, the best stand-up I ever did was a story about my dad, and I almost didn't tell it. And I was with Janine Garofalo, who's very political, in New York, and I was telling her the story that happened. We were just walking around Union Square, and she goes, you have to tell that on stage. And I literally said to her, I go, but it's not political. And she was just like, no, you have to tell it on stage. It's a good story. It's about a relationship. It's about your flaws. It was totally about me being flawed and fucked up. And it was the most enjoyable time I had on stage was talking about that. And that's what I want to talk about now is just like all the depression and flaws and fuck ups and stuff like that.
Well, don't be a human. Just don't define yourself. Don't box yourself into some weird category.
And that was the problem. But I felt like I could only talk about that stuff. You know, it would be like if you could only talk about like UFC and you're like, I want to talk about other shit.
Well, I've been very fortunate that I don't have to just talk about that. But I think I've been very conscious about avoiding weird boxes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've been stuck in some in the past, but I think that you can navigate this world of social media, but it takes diligence. And I think that we're the first generation of human beings that have had to encounter this weird environment. I mean, this is not an environment that our parents grew up in.
No.
So it's not like there's like a body of information that we can draw upon.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a lot of people have sort of figured it out over the last 100 years and this is how you manage the winter.
No,
You got to have firewood and you got to do this and you got to make sure that you drink a lot of water when you go into the mountains.
Fucking move to LA.
There's no... You know, there's no history.
Yeah.
So
and people
make mistakes.
And you become really dependent on it. It takes discipline, man. I logged onto my Twitter the other day for the first time to like follow you guys and be like, am I gonna tweet anything? And I didn't because I just like saw those notifications and I'm like, there's some dark shit behind those notifications that like I'm not clicking.
Yeah, you just can't be reading it, and definitely don't argue with people online. There's no benefit to that. I've almost essentially totally stopped doing that. Occasionally I'll fuck with someone if I just am in the mood for it, but the vast majority of the time my phone is like this.
No, yeah,
face down.
I think I forget if it was like Jocko or Tim Ferriss or one of those guys, but talking about like putting on airplane mode like an hour or two before you go to bed, then like not turning that shit on until like I've started doing all that, and I just feel so much healthier. And like I'm telling you that when I was attacking people on Twitter every day, I was depressed as fuck and straight up suicidal and projecting, and I was just miserable. And that happens. It's a rush. You have a community. You have people who go, you tweet, I'm having a bad day, and you got 100 people being like, dude, you're awesome. You know what I mean? Like, that shit's addictive. Like, it's really addictive.
Of course, yeah. It is, and that's, that whole sympathy mining is something that a lot of people do, too.
Oh, I did all that.
Yeah, sympathy mining, virtue signaling. It's like there's so many different things that people do.
What's virtue signaling again?
I think it's what you've been doing for like the past
cool.
15.
Okay, great.
So, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this it's a really simple sort of way to get love.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And then what sucks is like the important issues also get pushed aside.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because this isn't
like whether or not Trump's going to go to jail.
Yo, what the fuck is
we were talking about that before the podcast.
I literally opened...
Is he going to jail? Is someone going to jail?
I opened up CNN today for the first time. I'm like, I guess if I'm going on Joe's, I should know what's going on in the news. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I saw Kevin Spacey. I saw like people getting arrested, and I was like, I'm out.
Well, that Mueller guy's not playing games.
No, he's not fucking around.
Yeah, and that guy was the longest running head of the FBI since J. Edgar Hoover. He has like painstakingly broke down this collusion with the Russians situation.
Yeah.
And what it seems to me, as an outside person who doesn't really pay too much attention to politics, I would look at it like the mob. If I was going to attack the mob, I would go after some low-level people first.
Get them to rat.
Yes. Yeah. That's what he's doing. He's bringing in these dudes that were, Manafort, and he's bringing in these dudes that were running the campaign,
yep.
and Trump is unhinged today. Trump is making a bunch of...
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
Oh.
But you know what's interesting, too? Then it just came out that Hillary and the DNC funded the dossier on Trump, and they spent millions of dollars and lied about it for the past year. Which is, by the way, you're trying to influence the political process as well, and you're doing it by what you know is fiction, a fictional story on Trump with hookers peeing on people and shit like that. So everyone's dirty, and this is, I think, really important. I think the right has to recognize that you're in a situation where you absolutely have people that have colluded with Russia. The left has to recognize you are in a situation where you had a really corrupt career politician who almost got in. And don't hold her up as some sort of high standard for womanhood and progressive ideas. This is a woman that didn't even believe in gay marriage until 2013.
Oh, dude, I said that on stage when I was like, when if you criticized Hillary, people would say you're not a feminist. And I was like, first rule of feminism, like, don't kill a bunch of fucking women overseas. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. That was another problem with like my whole thing is we couldn't, if you criticized a woman, it would be one thing if you said, I disagree with Hillary Clinton's foreign policy. That should not be called sexist. If you were like, I disagree with Hillary Clinton's foreign policy, what a whore. It's like, okay, well, that's unnecessary. Right. But you couldn't, people were afraid to criticize.
You couldn't say she is a known liar.
Because they would say, well, that's a dog whistle. That's what you call crazy ladies. It's like, no, that's what you call a fucking politician.
Well, when they're crazy ladies, you should call them crazy ladies.
Crazy lady politician.
Or just crazy person.
Well,
let's just not be specific to gender.
Yeah, and it's also like, like the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing where it's like, I don't hate her because she's trans. Like, I hate her because she's kind of a cunt. Like, she's a little bit of a fucking Republican cunt.
Here's the thing about Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner doesn't believe in gay marriage.
Right.
Which is fucking patently insane.
Right.
And that's what people need to know.
Well, it's like, you can go, you're a bad person.
Male Kardashian. That's what it is. Who became a female Kardashian and got what he wanted, which is massive amounts of attention. If you go back and look at Bruce Jenner when he was Bruce Jenner and then look at Caitlyn Jenner, goal achieved.
Caitlyn's killing it.
Massive amounts of attention. People celebrating. You're a hero. You're amazing. Same dumb person.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I feel like you should. And it sounds like such a like it's easy for me to say because I'm like a white dude, but it's like I wish you could just judge people as being people. Now we have systematic oppression of certain groups of people, right? And I think a lot of people who say, just judge people as people, they're saying that while there's like a Black Lives Matter rally. And it's like, well, all right, not the best time to like say it, right? But...
Well, the only reason why Black Lives Matter works at all is because it's an issue.
It's a huge
White
issue,
Lives
right?
Matter doesn't work.
No.
See?
It's very
real
silly.
simple.
Right.
It's real simple.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason why people go, well, you know, all lives matter. Okay, but no one, see, there's a reason why no one's saying white lives matter.
Right.
Because the white people aren't being oppressed.
Well, and people were
even
like,
if you disagree with Black Lives Matter as an organization.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of run by, one of them was not really a black guy. You know, the whole Sean King thing.
oh, I don't know. I think he followed me on Twitter. I'm just going to shut up.
He's kind of a fake black guy. But there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues for sure with racism in this country.
Yeah, and
when you have a group that addresses those issues and the group gets attacked by people, you got to wonder, like, why is that group getting attacked?
Yeah, and I'll even bring this back to, like, even with the rape culture stuff, which I did not think I would be saying on the show again, which is that you'd have guys online who every time a woman got raped, they would be like, well, what about men who get raped? And you go, well, that's awful. But why do you only say it when we're talking about a woman being raped?
Exactly.
Or why do you only say all lives matter after, like, a black kid was shot, right?
It's all the buts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but
what about us? It's like, it cannot be about you for a second. And I was just as guilty of that. Like, Black Lives Matter, when they go, oh, well, they're racist against white people. It's like, the title itself, Black Lives Matter, that's a low bar. They're just saying we exist, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at us. Like, look at us being gunned down in the street.
Look at us being killed by cops.
Right. It's not saying Black Lives Matter, therefore, like, white people should be killed by cops. Like, there's nothing like that. People get so mad when it's not their group.
Well, and they always want to concentrate on people that are black that make ridiculous claims. Like, instead of just looking at the idea behind why was Black Lives Matter formed, then they start looking at black people that make ridiculous claims like black people can't be racist because racism is power plus influence and prejudice, which is just not real.
And that's the same shit that people on the left would do, where they would just sort of like nitpick at these very specific little arguments. And it's like, there are bigger things to fucking worry about.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's why an organization like Black Lives Matter gets any heat at all. Because, right, if people just said, yeah, of course, cops are absolutely shooting black people at a disproportionate rate. You know, I mean, if you just look at these incidences that we've been forced to see in the news, there's been so many of them, and these people march and, like, what, that one black woman who got pulled over and refused to put out her cigarette, and the cop was telling her to put out her cigarette, and she wound up being dead in her cell like a day later.
I think that was Sandra Bland.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
she was just like hung in her cell.
That is a fucking insane story. That woman, that cop was a piece of shit. I mean, the way he was communicating with her, he was not communicating with her like she was a woman that just got pulled over for speeding.
Right.
He was communicating with her like she was under him.
Like it was
he had to force his power on her. I mean, we've seen that kind of shit before. And if that's not racism, it's absolutely shitty policing.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That's what we should talk about. And that's like what we were talking about with the Islamophobia, where it's like you're also being counterproductive, right? Like you want to say that the cops want to go, well, like Blue Lives Matter too. It's like, cool. Why don't you guys should be the most mad when there's douchebags like that who pulled over Sandra Bland, right?
Yes.
You guys should be the most mad to clean up your fucking organization, to clean up your shit, and you should be on the front lines.
Right.
Like
exactly.
how powerful would that be? Like them on the front lines with Black Lives Matter being like, we don't want that shit in our precincts.
And by the way, it's not even just about the way they attack black people. You saw that woman in Utah that was arrested because she refused to draw blood on someone who was in a coma.
No, I didn't see that.
You didn't see that?
No. I've been offline, my friend.
Someone got taken into custody, or someone got taken to the hospital, rather. The cop showed up and demanded blood be drawn without this person's consent, which is against the law.
Yeah.
She said no. The cop arrested the woman. Now, he's been fired. I think most people are unqualified to be police officers.
It's a big job.
It's a big job. And I think that it should be much more respected. It should be a much more difficult position to attain. And I think that herein lies the problem. You're asking regular people to deal with insane amounts of power, literally the ability to pull the trigger on a person and end their life. And we've seen time and time again people get away with ending lives in a matter that we, the citizens, don't agree with.
Yeah, and the bar is kind of crept, right? Where now the things that you should be using hand-to-hand combat for, you're using tasers for. The things that you should be tasing for, you're shooting, right? But
see, here's the thing: you can't expect the average police officer to be able to use hand-to-hand combat on some person when they have no idea
they're
what
not
that person's skill level
training.
is. Yeah, unless it's the cop is fucking Stipe Miocic.
No,
what are the odds you're going to come out ahead?
Right.
You know, you might get your fucking gun taken away from you. You might get shot.
Well,
I don't think they should have to use hand-to-hand combat. I mean, look, it's a fucking insane position.
Or at least be trained better, right? Like, people should not be dying. You shouldn't be tasing like mentally ill people who are having heart attacks.
Well, there's a lot of like really frail people that are police officers. I've seen them. There was some guy that was the other day. They were pulling this guy over, and they had this guy out on the curb. And I looked at this guy. He had a little pot belly with these little skinny arms.
Well, that's adorable.
Not really.
Oh, okay.
I would look at it. I'm like, this guy is a victim. Like if someone just decided to turn on him and punch him in the head, he would be unconscious.
Right.
And he's a cop. And he's like this frail cop.
Dude, I used to have a friend who did like psychological profiles for people who wanted to get in the police academy. And she told me some of the answers for like why these guys wanted to be cops. Like, one guy, she said, literally wrote like in his essay, like, I want to become like a police officer so I can finally get the respect I deserve.
Oh, Jesus
and it's like,
Christ.
well, I mean, she didn't like, he didn't go through, but it's like, there are those people, not all cops, hashtag, there are those people who are just like, they just want fucking power. They want, they got fucking bullied. They got.
And for every guy dumb enough to say that on his application, how many guys just internalize
That's what I was saying. All that guy had to do was not fucking say that, right?
Yeah,
and like, that guy was so nuts enough that he's like, you know what, they'll understand. They'll see where I'm coming from. And he fucking wrote it down.
There's so many fucking people that they need. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't want to be police officers. Like in LA for a while, they had these giant billboards where they're advertising how much you get to start.
Oh, they're having trouble like recruiting and shit?
Because nobody wants that job. You're essentially the professional enemy.
Right.
You're pulling people over. Most of them have committed some sort of a crime. They're going to lie to you.
And so
you're dealing with liars all day.
Right. Yeah, Jesus. I never thought about that. But that's another thing where if you also can't, just like the cops should be trying super hard to get rid of the bad ones, if we demonize every cop, then those cops who have like a really hard fucking job are going to be like, well, fuck you guys. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Again, it's that balance where, and so much of it comes down to just like the economy and people's lives sucking, right? Like, it's really easy, for example, for people to shit on these like black like inner city neighborhoods, and they go, well, why don't they call the cops? Why is their neighborhood trash? It's like, well, because they call the cops and then their dog gets shot or whatever.
Sure.
And so it's like, people just need, I think that's why you saw like Trump and Bernie, right? People need fucking jobs. They want to take care of their family. They're not reading Twitter or the news like I used to, or that most of us who live in this Twitter bubble, all these fucking, so many of these progressive journalists I hung out with who were like 99%, like so many of them were like fucking just spoiled rich kids who wanted to feel oppressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dude, you know, I hang out with all my like white journalist friends were like white kids. I'm like, I see more diversity in fucking jujitsu than I ever did with the people who were constantly talking about diversity. It was a bunch of white kids trying to feel more progressive or more intelligent. And I'm very much including myself. And then I started going to jiu-jitsu and I was like, that's what a Mexican looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, getting back to what we're saying, I think that one of the good things about these groups like Black Lives Matter is, regardless of whatever controversy, it's forcing the conversation.
You have to have it.
You have to have that. I just think they have to be careful with what they do. Like when kids get crazy and they want to block off the highway. You know, like, don't do that kind of shit, because that gives people a very bad impression of what your organization stands for, and you're blocking off the highway, and that could stop people from saving your mom who fell down and broke her head open. I mean, you're gonna block off the ambulance. You're gonna block off people that have to make a flight. And you're saying, well, yeah, that's how you make noise. You know, you cause people inconvenience. No, you disrupt the very systems that we need in order to make civilization run correctly. So you don't have to do that to get attention. So
you're saying you still... Okay, got it. Because the problem is, and this you can blame on the media, where it's like, those are the only protests that get covered. If you have a peaceful protest with speakers, you know, standing outside of someone's like congressional office, then it's like that shit doesn't get covered. I remember going to protests.
Right, but hold on a second. You're right that the media, but I think the media is slowly but surely becoming irrelevant, and that the real media,
I do too.
The real media is what's look, the only reason why the news, we don't even have to name an organization, but in quotes, the news is because they have a long history of disseminating information, right? But regular people are doing that now. A lot of people are doing that now through different websites and YouTube channels, and I think that that's the future. And we don't have to be, as long as you're honest and you have a real objective point of view, you don't have to be sanctioned by some gigantic corporation to get the fucking truth out.
No, in fact, you're less likely to get the truth out because of your sponsors. MSNBC is owned by GE. MSNBC is the quote unquote liberal network, and they're owned by like a company that like fucking can profit off of war.
Dave Rubin had a post that he did today. Go to Dave Rubin's Twitter page about why people distrust the media and why the media is garbage today in their coverage of this Kevin Spacey thing. Because all of these different outlets were saying that Kevin Spacey came out as gay. That was the main headline.
Wasn't he trying to fuck a kid?
Yes. Kevin Spacey came out as gay. Kevin Spacey came out as gay. This was like, well, let's have a pull it up.
Yeah, that sounds like we should be applauding.
Well, this is, but this is, it just shows you what it is. Like, look at this. Media, why, scroll up, why doesn't the public trust us? Because this. Now look at this. Actor Kevin Spacey declares he lives as a gay man. Kevin Spacey announced Sunday night that he will live as a gay man. I mean, look at all these different, the New York Daily News, Reuters, the Daily Beast. They're saying that he's gay, but they're saying he's gay because a kid came out, we're a man now, came out and said Kevin tried to fuck him when he was 14.
Jesus.
So this is like saying that he declares he lives life as a gay man. God damn it, that's not the story.
No, that sounds like a festive thing. We should all be like, congratulations to Kevin Spacey.
Not only that, he said this in this statement where he was apologizing for this thing. Oof. So like this is so crazy.
Well, and also like
that's how they choose, but they choose to frame it that way because someone coming out is going to get a lot of people paying attention.
Right. Well, and also I don't the link to link pedophilia always to homosexuality isn't true. Like there are a lot
right.
of people who would consider themselves heterosexual, whether it was in the church or whatever, who are raping kids because it's a power thing and they're sick. Or pedophilia is just different. Being attracted to kids is different than being attracted to like men. And this is like also really dangerous to equate like trying to fuck a 14-year-old with just like going down to West Hollywood to like do some gay shit. You know?
Well, I mean, he hasn't admitted that he did it, and he said he doesn't recall it at all. But he did say that he had a problem with drinking, and and that if he did do anything, he was very sorry. And we're talking about something that happened at least 30 years ago.
Right.
So here's also a problem, and this needs to be addressed because we really don't know whether or not this guy's memory is accurate. Because something 30 years ago, the problem with being 14 years old is, first of all, 14 years old, you're so goddamn confused.
I don't remember shit.
You don't remember shit. You are awash in hormones and confusion and insecurity, and he might have had
that was
some
like the last 5 years of my life too.
He might have had some weird run-in with Kevin Spacey that may or may not have been sexually predatory. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Right.
But to decide that he's absolutely telling the truth and Kevin Spacey is absolutely covering this up by coming out as gay and using that to sort of diffuse the situation.
This is sort of this is almost the opposite of when Twitter declares you guilty. This is like the news declaring you almost like innocent, right? Mm. Where I don't know what happened to letting courts decide and talk about people being accused and whatnot, where Twitter can just like be like, if they say you're done, like you had John Ronson on, right?
Yes.
Did you read that publicly shamed book?
Yes.
So good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's just like, man, these people's lives are done, and I was part of all that shit. I tweeted about fucking Justine Sacco.
Yep.
Straight up, I did. And I read that book, and it's like, yeah, you don't think of that. You know what I mean?
Well, because it's a free shot. I mean, look, the worst example of that is people that are completely anonymous, right? You weren't completely anonymous, which is why you face the blowback.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that just have a Twitter egg, and they're completely anonymous. They have a bunch of random letters and numbers as their name, and they fucking attack people left and right.
Yeah.
It's a common thing on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing a new kind of interaction with human beings.
Yeah.
and this interaction where there's no social cues involved, there's virtually no repercussions for saying the most evil, vile shit, and then people take it as a badge of honor that they've been blocked.
Right. Yeah, and make it their Twitter bios.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird times.
Yeah, man. I just wish. Being off Twitter I wish it didn't happen in such a horrific way, but has definitely made me like. I talk to people more now. I talk to people who disagree with me. I'm like, I look people in the eyes more than I used to. I'm not checking my phone.
But don't you think this is a good thing to you ultimately because how else would you have escaped?
I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you were in a cult because I had Brett Weinstein's brother Eric on recently, and Eric was talking about the cult of progressive ideology, that it literally is a cult. Like one of the core things that people keep saying is that biology and gender are not related. You know, like there's some weird things that people say in order to be supportive of trans people.
Sure.
There's a lot of weird, but these things that they're saying, they're not supported by science, and they're very culty, and everyone repeats them, and they repeat them for the same reason why people in certain religions repeat religious phrases.
Yeah, and this goes back to that progressive thing I was talking about where, to me, the reason that I wouldn't fully read a lot of those articles is because I was like, but I want to support those people, right? And because I don't think trans people should be discriminated against. I don't give a shit where they want to go to the bathroom unless it's like on somebody, right? Like I don't care. I think that everybody should live and feel free as long as you're not being, predatory. Or like when the Republicans were like, well, men are going to dress up as women. It's like that's men. Like this isn't bosom buddies, right? Like that was that. Like trans people are different than men who dress up as women and like sneak into fucking bathrooms.
There are most certainly going to be men who dress up like women and sneak into bathrooms because it's a loophole.
I mean, they could just walk into bathrooms now, though.
Just like there's going to be people that drive into crowds of people with their car.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to drive a car.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have aberrations, but It's not like there's a million people right now sneaking into the women's room to try to fuck kids.
Right.
I mean, this is just, you can't use those individual incidences as aberrations of freakiness.
No, and so
an awfulness.
Totally, and so to go back to your cult thing, I do feel like.
You would have never gotten out.
I mean, God, I wish this wasn't the fucking way it happened. I wish what happened was.
But why? Because you didn't do anything wrong.
I know.
Not really bad.
No,
no big deal.
But that shit still exists, and like, God, fuck, did it like the fact that anyone would think that I'm like that fucks with you.
Well, why don't you write a counter article?
So I think eventually I will. One of the reasons I didn't say anything.
Get it published by like the Meninist or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. What's that?
Or the Red Pill.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say, guys. I'm about to become a fucking 4chan hero. And no.
4chan's happy with us because we were making fun of the Radio Lab thing. I got some tweets from people.
Oh, good.
Radio Lab pulled down this thing where Shia LaBeouf put up some stupid flag, and it said he will not divide us, and 4chan went and found the flag. It was in the middle of Tennessee and took it down and walked up to the camera and went, fuck Shia LaBeouf. And it was on his webcam live, and it was a great Radio Lab podcast, but Radio Lab took it down because some people complain that 4chan is awful. You're missing the whole point of what they did was not awful. These are individuals. 4chan is comprised of hundreds of thousands of unique individuals.
Kids fucking around to
exactly.
Yeah.
And this incident was amazing.
Yeah.
And Shia LaBeouf's a fucking dork. So the whole thing was great.
We could have come together with 4chan.
Yes,
we missed our opportunity. Radio Lab and 4chan as one for a day.
Radio Lab just, they're on that progressive ideology team.
It's scary when you can't hear other voices.
Yes.
And I think there's an app they were talking about in Sam Harris's show where it tells you if you're reading too many like either left-wing articles or right-wing articles. Like it's like, hey, we're steering a little too left. You want to balance this shit out? And there's like an app that can do that
so
for you.
the app it aggregates your news through this app?
I think so. Yeah. And
well, that just tells me you're reading too much shit on your phone.
On your phone in general.
Yeah.
That's why I've started reading books and it's much better. But fucking... I forgot what I was going to say off of... the cult thing. I mean, I don't know, because I still Yeah, so I don't want to walk around and feel the way. One of the reasons I didn't respond, Google and suicide. And then I should say this for my poor girlfriend. Once she came back and like had my back, like I said this on, Doug actually brought her up on stage for the podcast, but I thought she was going to break up with me, and she was like, well, I kind of wish you were more predatory towards me. And that's when I was like, I'm going to marry you. You're great. You're a keeper. And she totally had my back. And
that's such a creepy thing to say. There's so many girls right now warming up their fingers, getting ready to type a horrible article.
No.
He was excited that his girlfriend wants him to be predatory.
No, she was kidding. She's just funny. She's just a funny person. You can be funny. You can be funny.
You can be funny.
But fucking... When she had my back and like I kind of walked it back and was just like, what am I going to do? There was another part of me that didn't want to write an article. I had people say to me, I had one person who spoke at the fucking Women's March who called me to be like, this makes my job harder. Because when you start to call fighting with your girlfriend abuse, when you start to call a bad breakup, whatever, when you start to call consensual hookups on the road predatory, it's like, this is what sexists point to when they go, all these girls who talk about being preyed on, it's bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
They point to like these innocuous, normal situations. And so that's really, really scary. But I also had people be like, if I defended myself, and some people told me this, if I defended myself, I would suddenly look like I'm saying don't believe women, or I'm saying that because I'm defending just one person, me. And I'm like, I didn't want to be, and I don't want to be. I just want to be a fucking comic. I don't want to be a voice for like, bitches are crazy. And I also don't want to be a voice for, every guy is a fucking evil rapist, right? I just want to tell jokes.
But that's what I'm saying. And move on. This experience, in a lot of ways, sort of can guide you through it.
That's what's been happening.
Yeah, but having this example of how it could all go completely sideways.
So sideways.
And sideways, admittedly, even before it went bad, it was going sideways because you were attacking people without reading the full story.
Well, and I was depressed then,
and
too.
You were looking to get this sort of response by attacking people, looking to get people to say, yo, Jamie's on our side, Jamie's positive.
Totally.
And then being addicted to this response thing and checking your phone all the time to making sure, that people are on your side where you're battling with someone and calling them a sexist, racist piece of shit.
See how many followers this person has who just retweeted you. Like, that's all I did. And now just being able to like wake up early, take care of myself, read books, hang out with my dope girlfriend, go do jujitsu all day, and then write jokes.
And live your life as a human.
And just be nice to people. Dude, I'm telling you, I am nicer to people not being this like fucking progressive. Because I was just judging everybody. How can you be nice to everyone if you're just like, look at that guy, he's fucking eating meat. Look at that guy, he's got this fucking bumper sticker or whatever. You're just constantly looking to be outraged. Yeah,
the attack machine of this. I mean, not just the progressive ideology, but the right-wing ideology as well. It's an attack machine.
Totally, and you can't enjoy things. Like, how many, anytime you tweet, like, I went to this movie, and they're like, well, this actor's problematic, or this movie is fucking racist because of, and it's just like, I don't know, man. I just had a good night. I just wanted to go see a fucking movie. Like,
I think that people are getting tired of it, though. And this is what I'm hoping.
Well, that's
I'm
what you were
hoping
talking
that
about.
This sort of balances out and that this is a new form of communication that we're engaging in, and people are doing it poorly.
Well, and I'll say this. I was very surprised because I was like, when I told some comic friends that I wanted to go back to stand-up or like improv-y people, and I was like, no one wants to hear about my shit. No one wants to hear a rant about being a moderate. And so many people like hush hush were like, yeah, they do, because they're sick of the extremes on both sides. They're sick of all this, like, just everyone's just like, all these Trump jokes are just like so fucking just, it's white noise. It's white noise.
Also, these progressives are trying to out-progressive each other. So people that consider themselves progressives are also getting attacked, like the Brett Weinstein thing, where, he's getting called a racist. Like, if you know him, he's like one of the most deeply progressive guys, like, probably I've ever had a chance to talk to.
Yeah, well, and that was the Rose McGowan thing. That was that guy I heard on Sam Harris's, where if something happens to a white person, then someone will be like, well, what if that happened to a black person? It's like, right, that would be bad too. And it's like, well, what if it happened to, then someone else would be like, what about a black trans person?
The silencing thing is so fucked up. And this is what people are trying to do. They're trying to silence people. They're trying to get people fired. But the answer to bad speech is not silencing people. It's better speech, right? And isn't that one of the things that Nick, what's his name? What is his last name? That was on Sam Harris's podcast. I'll pull it up.
Well, and I think that's great.
That was one of the really important things that he said that I completely agree with.
I will say that I do think both sides say that. Like, even when I was on not the comedy side of the Tosh thing, right? It's like shouting down at the female journalists or trying to get them fired is still just as bad as complaining about Tosh's joke. You know what I mean? Like, it is both sides trying to shut the other person down instead of like a dialogue.
Nicholas Christakis, that's his name.
Oh, is that the guy I was talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, that's his name. Sam Harris with a gross pop-up. Kill those on your website, dude. Those are gross. Sign up for your newsletter. I'm not going to sign up now, Sam. You fucked yourself with that little pop-up. God, I hate pop-up windows.
This is the new Twitter war, just Joe versus Sam about pop-ups.
I love Sam. He knows I love him, but I hate pop-ups. So he was the co-director of the Yale Institute for Network Science, and he wound up having to step down.
If this is
he is the co-director of the Yale Institute for Network Science. So he was a professor of social and natural science.
Was this a guy whose wife also got into trouble?
Yep, that's the guy.
Okay, so this episode literally changed a lot of my views on everything.
Yeah, it was. Well, it's a very important episode. And what was the name of the episode, Jamie?
Facing the crowd.
Facing the crowd.
It was,
and it was about women. This woman shouted him down, and you're supposed. This is our home. You're supposed to be fucking protecting us. About Halloween costumes, and the wife had made a letter that she had sent out, and the letter essentially said, people should be allowed to have. Like, we'll play some of this here.
I hear that.
I'm looking at the smirk in your face, and I'm disgusted.
Okay.
I am sick. And I'm sick watching them argue with you after we've been standing outside literally for at least 5 to 6 hours. Between you and Holloway, between last night to now, we've been arguing with people who are not willing to be listened to for a long time. And all I see from you is arrogance and ego. I am sick looking at you. I am disgusted watching Lex argue with you. You were not listening. You were disgusting. I don't think you understand that. And before I was not angry, per se. I was disappointed maybe. I thought maybe there was room for an apology. You've clearly told us that you do not plan to offer an apology for your words. You left the meeting last night to go home and then tweet, do not interrupt me, to tweet from your Twitter and then the Silliman's Twitter. You showed no remorse. You tried to let your wife leave that conversation without having answered for herself. That is disgusting. That is sick. And now, I wasn't angry before. I was not angry before, but now I am actually angry, sir. I really, do not interrupt me. I was not angry, and now I want your job to be taken from you. I don't want you to have this job. I am disgusted knowing that you work at Yale University, where I will get my degree, where I will look back and think I have to argue with you.
All right.
Don't,
it's my turn now. It's my turn now.
Don't do it. Don't do it, sir. Do not do it. This is not the day. You do not want to play this game with me. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't want to play this game with me. Okay? Understand that. Look me in my face, first of all, and understand that you are such a disappointment to this university, to your students, to yourself, to the things that you claim to agree with. You want free dialogue? You want free speech? This is how it works. Someone speaks, you listen. You do not cut them off. You do not do these condescending gestures. You do not smirk. You look them in the face and you wait. You wait until it is your turn.
I think the snapping is amazing. It's just so fucking characteristic.
The most upsetting part of that,
I
think what upset me the most is she has my poetry cadence. It was like she was doing the same moves and the same delivery.
Well, she was just trying to be intelligent and say something and shut him up and silence him. But that's the most important thing, is that she didn't want a dialogue. She didn't want a debate.
He also, from what I remember on the podcast, he didn't need to be out there.
He stayed out there for hours to talk to those people.
That's
He's
the
super
thing.
reasonable.
So when she was saying, like, you're wasting my time or whatever, like, he came out to try to kind of like have his wife's back and like calling him sexist.
He came out to have a dialogue
and like hear them out, but like he didn't fucking need to be there.
But
like,
what she was saying, I'm gonna have your job. This is where I'm gonna get my degree. And guess what, fucker?
I mean, I'll tell you this: as somebody who lost their job, and as someone who has gone after people on Twitter, those people that we tried to get fired or from a writing job or whatever, you don't think about them the next day. Like, the people who tried to get that guy fired on Twitter or whatever, like, they don't think about him
Well, they're
anymore. Like, if he
kids.
got fired,
Those are kids. I mean, you're looking at an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old.
But the Twitter-
and intoxicated by that moment as well. You know.
yeah, but the Twitter mob behind them, it's like a lot of me's, it's a
Yeah.
lot of adults
Yeah.
too, you know? And like, if that dude got fired and his wife got fired, like, I mean, that's like somebody's life who's done a lot of really good progressive things. Even if he did fuck up legitimately,
And
it's
he
like,
didn't. And it's also the consequence of actually being able to be fired. That's a problem. Like, say if you were running the Jamie Kilstein show, you got your own podcast, someone can't fire you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really important to be able to fully and completely express yourself.
yeah.
I mean, if you had done something horrible, the marketplace of free ideas should step in and say, we're not going to watch his show anymore. We're not
Right.
going to listen to him anymore. And
Yeah.
that would be normal and real. The problem with being a professor of a university is a twofold problem, right? There's tenure, and tenure makes professors arrogant. It makes professors realize that they can't leave, and then they suck at it, and they're terrible. I mean, it's really common. It's almost like winning the lottery.
Right.
Like they become lazy and weak, or they become the idea. And the ideal situation is they become completely dedicated to being a professor,
Badass and
they
just,
don't
yeah.
have to worry anymore about their job, and so now they completely dedicate themselves to being an educator.
Yeah.
That's what we would hope, that
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about being fired.
Yeah, and I really hope that people listening to this, because I wouldn't have listened to that podcast if I brought up that podcast in my old circle. I would have gotten in trouble. I wanted to listen to a lot of your shows, and I'm sure there are people who completely disagree with me ideologically who wouldn't, you know, read whatever the Intercept or Democracy Now or something on the other side. And it's like, my life has gotten so much better and wider and vaster, and I think it's made me a more empathetic person. Because again, on the left, you just assume you're empathetic because
You're on the left.
yeah,
Even though you're trying to get people fired, even though you're going after their jobs,
And you're being kind of a cunt.
attacking them,
Yeah.
and you're insulting them,
Yeah.
and you're labeling them in the broadest strokes of racism and sexism, and you know, you're calling them terrible.
and that's the problem.
Yeah,
where it's
you're
like,
framing them.
and then that makes your larger ideals, which can be correct, they don't matter as more.
Yeah.
Because you're not acting like a human being. And then it's also like, do you actually even care about those groups you're defending, or do you just want to be on sort of the right side and get your like bonus points, which is like,
That's a big part of it, right?
I would like to think I was both, you know, like when they turned, I wasn't suddenly just like, fuck gay people, like,
Right.
you know.
But you did eat a steak right away.
Man, but it was a heterosexual cis cow.
Not
that I
really.
ate,
Most cows are
right?
actually
Don't
neutered.
say it. Don't know.
Yeah, that's what a steer is.
Is it?
Yeah, they cut their balls off.
Dude, but even that, like, I was emailing with Rob Wolf, the big paleo guy, and it's like, you know how much there's a lot of shit that vegans and paleo people could have in common when it comes down to like hating factory farms or
Sure.
like trying to get like the healthiest, like that, like animal welfare.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, eating so many of these paleo guys are like, the majority of what you're eating should be fucking vegetables.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And they're just talking about health, and they are talking about animal welfare. And that's so fascinating, where it's like, oh, those conversations will never fucking happen.
Well, what we've done, it's a real problem, is jam too many people into a small area where there's no one growing any food. And so to solve that problem, they've figured out how to consolidate massive amounts of growing into these areas, both agriculture in terms of like vegetables and grains and animals. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all fucking gross.
Oh, yeah.
And what they do, the way they grow vegetables is totally unnatural. You're not supposed to have a gigantic swath of land
No.
that's only dedicated to wheat.
Well, and then all the steroids that they give the cow. Dude, I saw a picture of a cow once that it couldn't stand up because like its udder was so fucking big. It was like weighing it down. Like that shit is
That's
gross.
actually a misconception. It's very rare that they put steroids in cows.
So what is it?
What they do is they put a lot of antibiotics into cows because the cows are eating things that they're not supposed to be eating, like grain, and they get really sick.
And they're doing that to fatten them up to make them bigger,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And also that grain you could feasibly feed to people.
Yeah, you can, sure. Also, the thing people don't want to eat grass, but the yield is much higher. You know, if they can get a cow, they come to market quicker.
Yeah.
They grow faster, but they're unhealthy. When you get a marbled steak,
Yeah.
like what's that Wagyu stuff that people cherish and love? That Wagyu steak.
I'm the wrong person to ask, buddy.
Well, it's a really obese cow, is what
Okay.
it is. But if you eat grain and you're a cow, that's what happens to your body. You just get fat and gross. Chicken is another one. People always think that chickens are getting pumped up with steroids. Steroids are expensive. What they do with chickens is it's really a breeding thing. It's just like the way you make a bulldog or how do you breed the biggest mastiff? They take the biggest animals, they breed them with the biggest animals, and they've gotten to this position where these chickens are so fucked up because they've bred them to be so large they can't even stand up.
Oh yeah, when they're like claws like mold around the cage and stuff,
and they're jammed into these little areas.
That's awful.
But then on top of that, the real issue is that these animals are on top of each other. They're living in each other's shit. They get sick all the time. Yeah, that was that super chicken. That chicken is actually healthy by the way you see it walk around. That's just an enormous, large breed of chicken.
That chicken looks
also,
like a Sesame Street character.
It's a perspective issue, too. I'm sure if you were standing next to it, it wouldn't look as big. But, I mean, there's turkeys. Turkeys are pretty big. But the real issue is antibiotics. Antibiotics is a huge issue because those antibiotics are, first of all, you get these animals like pigs. The worst is pigs, man, because pigs are fucking smart.
Yeah.
At least chickens are reptiles.
Yeah.
They're birds. Their brains are fucking tiny.
Dude, baby pigs are like puppies. They're so cute.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
There was a Glenn Greenwald article recently that he published about these people that got arrested because they adopted these pigs. They actually stole these pigs from a factory farm and nursed them back to health. But in doing so and them getting arrested, it exposed the horrific conditions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, FBI's hunt for 2 missing piglets reveals the federal cover-up of barbaric factory farms. And that is a real cover-up because it's money. And that's why they have what they call ag-gag laws, and I'm sure you're aware of these. These ag-gag laws are fucking insane, where they make it illegal for people to take footage and film what's going on in these factory farms because they think that it will negatively impact the business of the farm.
Yeah, and it's like, yes,
it
will.
Course.
It will, because you're fucking breaking, you're being inhumane.
You're denying people information.
Yeah, and
you can't deny people information like that.
And I feel like that was one of those issues that I think Will Potter, I think I knew a couple of those guys because Mercy for Animals has done a bunch of those like undercover operations and stuff. And that's one of those things that, again, that should bring together both sides, right?
Yes,
it's
should.
Like we're all eating these animals, right? Or you're vegan and you're trying to stop this, but no one for the most part is like a fucking monster. No one is like asking for like a tortured animal like this who's like rolling around in their own feces, where it's like everybody has the right to know this. This is something that I think the vegan community could be very mainstream about and should get a lot of support. And Greenwald's always been like a softie for animals too. Like he does all of his like Snowden stuff, but dude has like 15 rescue dogs in Brazil and like he loves animals. And I'm glad this is getting coverage from these guys.
I'm glad it's getting coverage too, and kudos to him for putting that out. He's highlighting something that's a real issue, and that issue is there's a concerted effort to deny people information because that information would change the way they feel about the food they eat.
Yeah.
And the argument is that they have to have these conditions because this is the only way to give people food very cheaply because you have to feed 20 million people in Los Angeles. But I don't buy that article. I don't buy that argument.
No,
I think this is just how it's convenient to run right now.
Yes, and you also look at like what's the shit we actually do subsidize for poor people. It's garbage.
Yep.
It's like Coke and like processed food, and it's
we
like
subsidize corn as well, but
even that's
not the best thing for you.
No, especially like when it turns into like high fructose corn syrup and shit like that, where it's like people need to be educated. Doctors are barely educated about nutrition and health, and if we actually had healthy food, whether it be like meat or vegetables or whatever, in these like food deserts and stuff. That's why I always got mad when people were like, oh, look at that fucking fat person on food stamps. It's like, well, it's not because they're like eating a ton of grass-fed beef. It's because like their fucking food stamps can buy them chips and cereal and mac and cheese boxes and shit like that. Yeah. But that's another thing where it's like, well, that's not a conversation we have because we go, you're either on the vegan side or this side, or you're either pro-government or you're anti-government. It's like there are answers, I feel like, if people put their heads together and weren't just trying to get like, the guy who used the wrong pejorative fired from the New Yorker or whatever.
Right. But I think it's, again, just like everything else, there's more information available now than ever before. And I think more people are aware of this information. It's just so many people are distracted by nonsense all day. Like, yesterday, Tony Hinchcliffe and I, we did a gig in San Francisco, and when we were coming back, we were at the airport, and we were next to this gal at the airport, and she's talking on the phone about the most inane bullshit. She was talking about Amazing Race and the teams on Amazing Race are just not. They're just. I'm so annoyed with them, so I'm not even watching it anymore. But oh my god, I'm so hungry, and this place has this, amazing churro, and this is blah 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 blah, and I'm supposed to be getting this thing at work, but I'm not. So far my pay increase hasn't come through, and when it comes through, I'm gonna save up my money and I'm gonna get this thing. Blah, 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 blah.
I'm so mad right now.
But this is what this is the average person's life. It's just they get distracted by nonsense. They talk about bullshit. They're watching stupidity.
Well, it's hard because it's getting fed to you, and a lot of people aren't doing what they actually want to do, and they don't believe they can actually do it, and they go to college because they're told they're supposed to go to college, and then they're riddled in student debt, so they get a job they hate that they'll stick in until
my point was, what I was going to get to was that you, in your obsession with Twitter and you're being addicted to it and constantly checking in on it and going back to it, that was your distraction.
That was my
This
version,
woman
yeah.
is finding distractions in stupid television shows and bad food to eat and nonsensical raises at work, and because of that, this occupies so much of your time between your job and your family and all this that you don't have time to think about factory farming.
Totally. Well, and even now, I can judge that girl when I was doing the same thing on Twitter, but I could feel like, well, mine's for the cause.
Right.
Mine's not for,
Yes.
Mine's not for the Amazing Race. Mine's like for equal whatever, and it's like,
Right.
well, it's not.
It's not.
I'm not making
Yeah.
a difference. I'm just doing it for a fave. I didn't even have enough fucking Twitter followers to be addicted to Twitter. Like,
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Having followers is not what makes you
No, I know.
addicted. And anybody can engage with a large group of followers just by saying something mean to someone like Glenn Greenwald or
Yeah.
like someone who has a lot of followers. It's not hard to do.
I mean, Glenn gets shit from all sides.
Of course.
From
Yeah,
all sides.
Once the Edward Snowden thing came out, he became a lightning rod for it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people that are doing that. It's a unique time for the distribution of information. It's a unique time because we have to sort out ourselves how we manage this information and how it's getting in.
And man, I'll just say, like, once I just sort of started focusing on, in a weird way, being selfish, like, where it's like, how can I just be a better person? You end up, how can I better myself? You end up being a better person, where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's getting arrested right now for the Russia thing. But I'm like, I know that, like, I'm picking my girlfriend up from work after I, like, do a bunch of jiu-jitsu at like a dope gym, and I'm like, I'm kind of fine with that, I think it's just a healthier way to fucking live.
Well, you're talking about yourself, and you're talking about your own sort of management of your life where it had gone completely off the rails, and now you've got it back on track, and you're feeling yourself in a good place and a healthy place.
And now it's like, maybe there is a middle ground, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there is a way that, like, if I start doing shows again, I can, like, be on Twitter and not be a douchebag.
You definitely can. And I think that having this negative experience and getting through it, that's how you learn and grow. I mean, these big moments are big opportunities for growth, whereas the same grind day in, day out, you become like the gal at the airport. It's like, well, these teams in the Amazing Race are really annoying to me, but these churros are the best churros, and their churros are dry, and blah. There's nothing happening.
Right.
Like, having a big moment where all these people attacked you and things went totally wrong, it gave you this opportunity for self-reflection in a way that you really probably were very unlikely to achieve without this moment.
No, I was either gonna be off the Brooklyn Bridge or a bigger douchebag, and
Right,
I
and
don't know which one was worse.
You're at the All Things Comedy Festival. You're hanging out with Bert and
Dude,
Morgan.
it was
and Doug
just
and
literally the funniest people on the planet.
Yeah.
Fucking Ari, like the funniest people on the planet.
Didn't Doug pee on Ari? He peed on him, right?
That might have been the day after I left. I saw.
That's so mature.
I definitely saw Ari's dick.
That's my friends.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen Ari's dick 100
Yeah.
times.
I saw Ari's dick. I didn't see Doug's dick.
See, now, if I was in the wrong circles, Ari could have sexually assaulted me with his dick dick by showing me his dick. Like it would be considered some sort of a.
My girlfriend pointed that out when he came out on stage naked. It's like, would there be women in there that'd be like, that is sexual assault? Because I saw his
if it
dick.
was a Citizens Radio sort of a show, definitely people would they would be like, their fingers would hurt from typing so much to Jezebel. They would fill the comments up.
Poor Ari wouldn't feel good about himself.
Jezebel shares my fascination with Megyn Kelly. I read Jezebel's daily breakdown of Megyn Kelly's inane, retarded show. Yeah, it's
I haven't watched it yet.
Like, man, we could all be nicer. We could all find some sort of a middle ground.
Yeah.
We could all learn from all these experiences. I can learn from your experience for sure.
Yeah. You gotta stop preying on women.
Well, I'm not a predator like you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna hashtag you're the problem.
Oh, no, everyone's doing it now. Yeah, man, I got to say, listening to, you and Bert and Doug, and, I started listening to Fitzsimmons' podcast, all these podcasts about comedy and thinking about how... just because I feel like I failed, I was like, I guess I shit on all comics, and forgetting about that, even the comics who say the most horrific shit on stage, for the most part, there's a lot of really cool, broken, sweet guys who, through all of the bullshit, had my back. I remember I heard Bert, I told Bert this, I think actually on the podcast, maybe backstage, but I told Bert that, I was going back and listening to a bunch of his podcasts, and I listened to the one he did with Metzger, because I wanted that other fucking side to it, right? I wanted the other side.
The Metzger situation was
fascinating.
But I don't know if Kurt wants us to be known, but he was devastated by that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really bad. He lost
I've been
a
talking
ton
to
of
Kurt a
weight.
lot.
He was super unhealthy. I mean, he felt it. That rage, man, when they come after you.
Well, and when I heard him on the podcast he gets a little mouthy on Facebook, but when I actually heard him on the podcast articulate what he was talking about, where he was like, no, I think this. So for people who don't know, some fucking dude at UCB was accused of rape, I think.
Yes.
And
Kurt essentially said, he made it sort of in parody, saying that no woman could ever lie, and a woman is like my Bible, it's always true. And
yeah, but he was also saying that UCB said they did an investigation and found this guy guilty, and he was like, you can't
do that.
I don't know how
Call the
an
police.
improv theater can yes and their way to the clues. I don't know how that happened.
They're not detectives.
No, but now this dude can fucking, if he is guilty, he can sue the UCB. He can get, and that's what Kurt was saying too.
But he just worded it poorly, and it turns out that they believe the guy is a piece of shit.
Yes, and Kurt would be the first to say that. So anyway, so I listened.
It was a bad leap.
No, totally. And so I listened to this interview, and that has to do with just judging people on the internet without facts, right?
Right.
So I listened to this interview with Kurt and Bert, and it's really good. And I think that was the first time I heard Bert's show. And at the end, I was like, all right. They started talking about me, and they weren't really wrong about a lot of the stuff they said. And I had this moment where Bert, who I only met once, we did some weird TV show together in Amsterdam, and I only met him once, and I thought it was going to be him just being this fucking faggot feminist, because that was the idea I had of all comics and how they thought about me, right? Mm-hmm. And he was just yeah, man, I was just bummed out because I remember Jamie was nice, and then it just made me sad that he didn't stick up for comics. And I was it was just really sweet and sincere and kind of even vulnerable. And I remember turning to my girlfriend and being I want to apologize to Bert more than I do these women. He sounded so sincere and sad, and I just forgot about that that sort of comic camaraderie,
It's easy to characterize us and just to lump us into this boorish group of asshole men that are misogynists. And did you ever see that thing where Jim Norton went on W. Kamau's Bell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was Lindy West.
It was Lindy, yeah.
Her characterization of that kind of comedy was so caricaturish. It was so ridiculous. And
and there are caricatures of I know feminists who aren't fucking insane and who
But it's she was wanting it to be a certain way.
I think a lot of people do because it's easier to
demonize,
stereotype and demonize. Yeah. Because making that decision where I'm like, all right, fucking Rogan hates me. I don't need to listen to that podcast. Like, I'll just get the information that's easier to digest. That's cake, right? It's like, cool. I'm just going to listen to the shows that agree with me and feed me information that says, you're right, you're smart, you're good, as opposed to the stuff that's like, I got to look that up. I have to like think about this. I have to maybe change a behavior of mine, right? And people do that on both sides. And that's why it is so important where it's like, no one is the fucking stereotype of anything that people think.
Well, I think we're in a boat that's in rocky water, right? And I think it's going to rock left and it's going to rock right, and hopefully we're going to right the ship, and we're going to figure out what the fuck we're doing. And I mean, collectively, the human race has probably never communicated clearer ever than we do now, and it's because of our access to information. There's definitely going to be these groups of people that they haul off and they get confirmation bias and they shore their walls up with this group of like-minded folks in an echo chamber. There's always going to be that.
Yeah.
But I think that is more obvious for what it is today than ever before.
Totally.
And I think that's a good thing. You know, and
too.
I think that your ability to express yourself like this on this podcast, we've been talking now for 2.5 hours about
Jesus.
it. Yeah, this is a very unique way to communicate. And I think this is a way to communicate where you really get to know somebody versus someone characterizing you. This is why I have a problem with blogs. When someone writes a blog entry on you and you don't get a chance to respond, they don't get a chance to see who you really are.
No, and then when someone like me who's in a position to amplify it just reads that, you just read it as fact. Just like you watch the news as fact because you go, well, it's fucking called the news, right?
Well, that's why it's interesting to see it come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and then see your response and see you realize like, oh, and then go through this essentially an exile period.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you went a year without performing. I mean, that's...
Dude, without talking to people. Like without talking to comics with, you know... But it was also like working on me because like it's not like the article was garbage, but it's not like I wasn't like a shitty, selfish, depressed, in a bad spot person.
Right.
Like there were a ton of things I needed to fucking look at myself and fix. And was I being selfish? And was I making this all about me? And was I?
But it's not necessarily an accurate characterization of who you are as a person.
No. But it was good for me to fix those other things. I was like, well, I didn't do that, but I was kind of a douchebag, so I can fix this.
Right,
you know,
right.
That's why I thought comics believed that article, and when I was talking to Doug and I was like,
they didn't read it.
No, I know. They just thought it was funny because I was talking to Doug and I was like, yeah, man, I know I don't really want to apologize because I reread it and I don't think it's, and he's like, no, none of us think you're a fucking predator. You're apologizing for being a douchebag. And I was like, oh, I get it. It was the turning on comedy, the self-righteousness.
Well, I saw the article. And I looked at it, I'm like, damn, Jezebel's going after Jamie Kennedy. What the fuck? And I laughed, but I didn't think it was real. And I felt like, well, he's probably trying to get laid. And he said something, and someone took it and turned it into some horrific offense against all women. And turns out that he's actually a predator. And, you know, fuck him. He's cast out from the kingdom. I mean, that's just what people do, man. And one of the reasons why they do it is because they're absolutely terrified that they themselves are going to get cast out from the kingdom.
Dude, I totally, because everyone has their shit, and it is, I mean, it like all the Weinstein stuff and the like. There are a lot of dudes who probably would be supporting this more, but are just like, oh, but I flirted with that one girl at the office. Like, am I like Weinstein? And it's like, you can't compare those things because you have to go after Weinstein with as much, you know, whatever vigor as you do, like, not go after the people who are fucking flirting.
Well, the Weinstein thing, what's unique about the Weinstein thing is it is one of the worst cases you could imagine. Sort of like the Cosby thing is to drugging and raping.
Yeah.
It's like when you read about the number of people that are accusing Cosby and you're like, oh my God, did he rape people for like
this
decades?
Was like your full-time job next to the Cosby Show as a rapist.
Somebody characterized him as the worst serial raper in human history.
Dude, I heard you say that. That's
and I'm
so
like,
fucking,
wow,
yeah.
That might be real. That might be real.
Yeah.
I mean, he really might be. He might have drugged and raped hundreds of women. We don't even know the numbers.
By the way, that's another fucking example now that I think about it of what you were just saying, where the last however many years he went from comic to lecturing like black people about how to wear their pants and how to articulate. And he was talking about manners and how to present yourself. And it's like, oh, you're covering up drugging and raping people, where it's like, you're like, you know what I mean?
And that is what bit him in the ass, because Hannibal Buress talking about him on stage.
He was just being a comic.
That's what got him.
I still can't believe it was Hannibal. It was
being
Hannibal.
a comic saying, hey, you're telling me not to swear. Hey, at least I'm not out there raping women.
And people were like,
and
what?
Everybody went, what? What? Like the average person didn't know.
No.
I mean, I heard about it way back in the day when I was on news radio. Somebody, who the fuck just told me the other day? Oh, my friend Curtis. My friend Curtis, his mom worked with Bill Cosby in the 1960s. In the 1960s. And she was an extra on something that Bill Cosby was doing, and someone pulled her aside and said, be careful around him. He's a fucking creep.
Whoa.
And that he will do something. And, I don't know if they specifically said that they would drug him or that he would drug her.
Oh,
but
my
they
God.
said, be careful. So people that worked with him knew he was doing creepy shit like drugging women in the 1960s.
Jesus.
So we might be talking literally about 50 years
Of straight
rape.
up drug and rape.
50 years of drugging and raping, and he did jokes about it. That's the other thing Curtis was talking about. He had bits about putting Spanish fly into women's drinks and about drugging women.
Whoa.
He had actual bits about it.
Jesus.
But he got away with it forever until this distribution of information that we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
And this is what caused Harvey Weinstein's downfall.
Well, and that's why it's good. And that's why, I would never be like, social media is the problem, because, the Me Too campaign and Harvey Weinstein and Cosby, like, it is good that these people are being exposed. It's not good when you also then go on witch hunts for people who aren't
like to get laid,
fucking rapists or whatever.
Well, that's the difference. And this is the thing that a lot of men, they see the Harvey Weinstein thing and they start thinking about themselves and go, oh my God, what if every girl that I ever tried to fuck came out and said, John tried to, he tried to feel me up, or John tried to get me to go back to his house one night, after we had a couple of drinks together, and then,
because what does that look like? Is it a guy actually pressing up against you and violating your physical space, or was it a guy being like, hey, do you want to come up for coffee? And they're like, no, and they go, oh fuck, my bad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then how you characterize that. I mean, if you write a blog about it and you take all these women that Bill tried to fuck, and I'm gonna say Bill because of Cosby.
Yeah.
You could say John.
Yeah.
John tried to have sex with
Harvey.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
the crazy thing about Harvey is how many of them were famous. These were famous women with a voice.
Yeah.
And he still did it to them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just he just had some crazy addiction to doing that to women too. It wasn't just simply he was trying to get laid.
No, it's you are a bad person, because you could get laid because you're fucking Harvey Weinstein. You are a very rich, powerful man.
He could have hired prostitutes. I mean, if he wanted to, if he just wanted sex. It's pretty obvious that he wanted to fuck the leading lady.
Yeah.
He wanted to stick his dick in the mouth of the woman who was in the movie and know while he was watching the movie, I came in her mouth.
I did that.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Woo.
Yeah. You don't want to get that rich.
But
don't want to get
that also. What's this?
New one?
Accused of raping employee in the 70s. Oh God. As more women come forward. Oof. It's a goddamn rape fest out there.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's horrible, right? And it also reinforces a lot of negative ideas that women have about men too. That's another part of the problem, is that they will go, look, we were right. There is a rape culture. Look, we were right. Men do all do this.
Well, and I think if people could actually go after these rapists, then again, same thing with all of the middle ground issues we were kind of finding, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, well, let's go after the actual bad guys, and then not make, if there's a day where there's not a rapist, instead of looking, I mean, statistically I'm probably wrong, but looking for who can we be mad at for being sexist? It's just go enjoy the day, right? There doesn't always have to be a new bad guy. You can just go after the legit fucking predators and rapists and
Yeah, there's plenty of actual real targets.
bad
right?
cops. Yeah, exactly.
There's
We talked.
plenty
You
of
don't
actual
need
real
to
people.
invent them.
And also, like, is that the thing to do, or is the thing to do to try to educate humans as to how to behave with each other? And that this one of the reasons why this was he got away with it is because he had this extreme amount of power to control the future of these women.
It was just that.
And so that's how he got away with getting them to do these things and keep their mouth shut, because he held this incredible power over them. Because he could control their future, their career. He had the money and the influence to get them and give them the career that they desired.
Yeah, it was that legit casting couch cliche. It's just like, oh, it was real and it was him and it was gross.
Well, Whitney Cummings knows people that know like the whole inside story, and what she said is like, what you're hearing is all the women that said no. She's like, do you know how many famous women said yes?
Like begrudgingly said yes, you mean?
No.
Just
They
said,
did
yeah.
it because it was a deal. They made a deal. This is how I get the leading part. This is how I get, influence over editing.
Yeah.
This is how I get more lines. This is how I get, and that literally they negotiated this.
Yeah.
And she said he literally would negotiate certain aspects of their careers with sex. And these women did it. And, some of them probably begrudgingly and some of them willingly.
Yeah.
And some of them happily.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, but it's just what you're seeing is just this is how this guy operated.
Right.
You saw the Harvey Levin, that's his name, who released all the various aspects of the contract that he had, where they had worked in sexual harassment claims.
Yeah.
No, he would get fined a certain amount, like $100,000 for one, $250,000 for the
Like a
second
little,
one,
like,
$500 for the third.
Naughty boy, fine.
Yes,
Woo.
yes. Like literally, but negotiated into the look at this. Here it is. According to the contract, if Weinstein treated someone improperly in violation of the company's code of conduct, which obviously means rape, he must reimburse the Weinstein company for settlements or judgments. Additionally, you will pay the company liquidated damages of $250,000 for the first such instance, $500,000 for the second, $750,000 for the third, and $1 million for each additional instance.
So the contract is like, look, you're going to get raped.
We know you're a piece of shit. So we want to protect ourselves from your piece of shit ways.
Right.
It is 100% known. The contract says as long as Weinstein pays, it constitutes a cure for the misconduct and no further action can be taken. Translation, Weinstein could be sued over and over, and as long as he wrote a check, he keeps his job. Which is fucking crazy. It's just like they made a deal with the devil. They knew what they were doing.
Like he just had a pile of like rape checks and could just dole them out.
It's just amazing that this went on for so long.
Yeah.
And that they literally had negotiated this into a contract.
Right.
I mean, that is fucking, but it takes that to change the culture. It takes the exposure.
Like that cartoonish level.
Yes. It takes that to change the culture. And then all the people that are terrified of being outed like him now will recognize the consequences of those actions, and hopefully they're going to change their ways, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, but these are fucking, you don't like rub your hard dick against your employee, right? Like
unless your employee likes it.
Yeah.
And how do you know until you do it? Therein lies the problem. I was reading some fucking article, not an article, an advertisement from, it was like the 1920s. And it was an advertisement for a type of like antiseptic gum, like a Listerine type gum.
Yeah.
And it was how to kiss a woman. Is that you look in her eyes, you do not ask for permission.
Right.
You just do it. It's amazing. But it just shows you the way
what it was.
Our culture shifted from the 1920s to today. I mean, 100 years of progress and of people recognizing like, hey, no, you can't just stare at a woman and then fucking kiss her and not ask permission. Like you just like be confident and strong. Like no. What if you're gross?
Yeah.
What if she doesn't want to kiss? No, you gotta
just
have
be
more
confident.
information.
Use our product. Yeah.
Sometimes, here's the problem. Sometimes that works. If the woman is really attracted to you and you're really attracted to her and you look at each other and you don't have to say anything and you kiss, but you don't know when that fuck that is. How do you know? And you definitely can't put that in a gum ad, you piece of shit. But they didn't know that in the 1920s because no one was there to tell them. Like they were dealing with the information that they got just from communicating with their friends and the people they worked with and the limited amount of media that
Some
they had
dude
at
was
the
like,
time.
yeah, there was just some fucking girl and I kissed her, and they were like, got it, put
Good
it in the ad.
Check. How did you meet your wife? Well, I looked her in the eye, I didn't ask permission, I kissed her.
That.
And now we're married and we have a happy family. And that's how you do it, like a fucking man.
Chew gum.
Yeah, chew gum. But that was how much information they had to go off back then.
Yeah.
Whereas today, I mean, if you ask me, like, hey, how do you know when to kiss a girl? Well, will he kiss her? No. Teeth whitened, 3 shades of dead. That's a different one. But it was a yellow ad. Upper left. That's it. Do you know how to kiss a girl? Then learn. Stand facing her. Do not tell her your intentions. Do not ask permission to kiss her.
Tell her your
Look at
intentions.
that. Look dreamily into her eyes. Look dreamily into my eyes, Jamie. Look. Let me see dreamily.
I'm a predator.
No, you're dreamily.
Oh, okay.
You're looking dreamily. I don't know how to do
I'm I can't act.
You may hold her right hand in your right hand if you wish. It is well to sigh a couple times about this stage of the game. What? Whisper softly that her rosebud lips reminds you of Cupid's bow. Holy shit.
Wow.
She will probably drop her eyes and blush when you say that. Place the fingers of your left hand under her chin and tilt back her head slightly. Draw her attention. By the way, this is all like, you could see it in a like you could see the cartoon of it.
Yeah, this is all one ad?
And the guy's dressed like a cop. Draw her gently towards you. Do not hurry. Gaze deeply at the love lights which slumber in her eyes. Sigh once more. Holy shit.
The sighing thing.
The editing. You need to edit this thing. This is terrible writing. Incline your head towards her until your lips. But wait, all caps. Do not kiss her until you know that she uses Listerinated Pepsin gum, the only antiseptic gum in the world, the only chewing gum that makes it safe to kiss. Safe to kiss.
Wait, so you're being a creep, but then you're putting the onus on her to use the thing? Oh, that's some bullshit. That's sexist.
If she is a Listerinated Pepsin gum girl, kiss her.
Oh, that sounds like a really bad Penthouse letter, not a fucking gum ad.
Is it 1911? Copyright 1911.
Ooh.
Common Sense Gum Company.
So weird.
What is it? Common?
Common.
C-O-M-M, but it looks like E-N.
That's just a
shitty font, old font, blurry font. Common Sense Gum Company.
Oh, man.
Common Sense Gum Company. Jesus, 1911. Well, that's, limited access to information. Just the fact that that would be torn to shreds.
Oh my God.
If somebody tried to write that today and put it in an ad in, like, say, Esquire or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But it just shows you the evolution of human culture.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we're experiencing that.
Totally. And I think there's a lot of good. I think, that shit shouldn't happen. You shouldn't just be creepily sighing into a girl's mouth. That sighing stuff was bizarre.
It works. Here's the thing. If the man and the woman are deeply attracted to each other and she's a moron and you're a moron, you say, moron, thanks. She's like, oh, Cupid's bow. And next thing you know, wait a minute, what kind of gum are you using? Oh, what kind of gum should I use? Yeah, I mean, it's who are we to judge? Jamie Kilstein? That should be the episode. The name of this episode.
Who are we to judge? Jamie Kilstein?
No, not even who are we to judge Jamie Kilstein, but comma Jamie Kilstein.
I love it.
Who are we to judge?
I support that.
Yeah, who are we to judge? Listen, come back to being a comedian, an actual comedian.
I want to.
You're back. You're back.
I think I'm back.
Start showing up. Start doing some sets. Call in for spots.
I got to figure out how to do that.
You'll figure it out.
I'll just start showing up
back.
weird.
You'll get back in.
Yeah.
You'll get back in.
That's what I'm going to try to do.
Beautiful.
That show was so fucking fun, and being around comics was so fun.
Yeah.
I forgot how much I love comedy. My
You're
girlfriend's much happier.
You took a break, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. And they'll be like, why'd you take a break? And I'm like, don't talk about that.
Progressivism. I got sick. I got sick with the left. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks. This was so fun. I'll get back on. I'll get back on Twitter.
Yes, you're back on. Well, be careful with that.
Yeah, I won't check my mentions.
But it worked. Yeah, don't for a day at least. They will come for you, especially if they know you're vulnerable. They're like wolves.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Thank you, man. Yeah,
fun.
you're the best.
I'm glad we did this.
Me too. It was great.
I'm glad you did it. All right. We will be back tomorrow with Colin Moriarty and Owen Benjamin on Wednesday. See ya.
Dude.